Good morning, everyone. Good morning in my time zone. Hope everybody's doing good. Ooh, we're already live. Yeah, man. Join the space. He's always on time. I love it. Good morning.
Good morning, Banana. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. At the office today.
Okay.
We're so busy right now. I have to come in on Saturdays.
Yeah, are the guys in also to work?
They're coming in 30 minutes. I got here 30 minutes a little earlier than I normally do, just so I wasn't on the move when we were just starting the spaces.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But they'll be popping in. So if you hear someone, in the background saying good morning or something like that, that's what's going on.
Okay. No worries. Yeah, you got to make hay while the sun shines, you know?
Yeah, contracts. Got to fulfill them.
Yeah. That's true too. It's pretty quiet in crypto land today.
Yeah, he's been doing a nice little pullback ever since it tapped super close to that all-time high. I think he got like 2% away or something like that, maybe 3% away from the all-time high.
You mean Ethereum?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why does my deck screener look different? Like, okay. I think Ethereum disappeared from my deck screener. I'll have to find it because usually I can get right to it.
A lot of like the wrapped ETH pairs and stuff like that on Dex Tools and Dex Screener don't even go back to last cycle because they're like new pairs and new liquidity pools. So I usually go on like CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko for that chart.
Oh, let's do that. I would like to do that. Let's go to CoinGecko. Kind of want to see where. Oh, I've already got it pulled up from our stream on Thursday. Ethereum. Yeah, it almost.
Huh? Go ahead. If you're already there, go ahead. I was going to fill some time, but.
Yeah. Well, let me just add that image. What's it saying? Hold up. Just bear with me. I'm trying to add it to the stage. It says, before presenting a screen, remove other media streams from the stage. Oh, okay. I see what it's saying. I just got to copy this and bring it over to the tab I'm presenting on. Okay. There we go. This should do it. I'm a little discombobulated for some reason. There we go. It's at 40. Right now it's at 46.65, which is wonderful because just last weekend it was, I think on Saturday when we were doing spaces, it was either 4,300 or 4,400. Do you remember?
I definitely don't remember. I remember we got specifically. So for me, the price we're at right now, are you saying the price we're at now or the high we hit?
The price we're at now.
For some reason on my Dex tools, it's showing 43.96. Is that what you said?
Give me a second. Well, I see on CoinGecko 46.65. Maybe that's the all-time high. I mean the recent high, but it's just not annotating that. I'm not sure. It doesn't say it's a high.
Yeah, on Dex tools, I'm seeing 4,390, which is a decent little pullback from the high we hit like 3 days ago. Looks like we got to 4,750, which is very, very close to the all-time high of Ethereum.
Yeah, you're right. It must be showing a recent high on CoinGecko because it is about 40. What did we say? About 4,400. But the previous high was like the all-time high. 47.42. Does that sound right?
I think it was a little higher because on this chart it's saying we broke 47.42, and I didn't see anyone saying we made all-time highs.
Yeah, I don't think we did. Yeah, I'm not able to see what the all-time high was, but we're close, man. We just got to break through. It's like when we had to break through 4,000. And we broke through 4,000 and we pulled right back underneath it because people had sell orders in place, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Some guy in a chat I'm in, he's like, see, that's why we can't have nice things. It was so funny.
Yeah, I actually was looking a little bit more in depth of, when Hex really started making its move compared to ETH. It was actually, it's interesting if you really overlay the Hex chart with the ETH chart. Hex specifically waited for a really far confirmation on ETH. Like it was well past the previous all-time highs. So 2 cycles ago, all-time highs, before it started making its drastic moves. It was pretty much around 1 cent, which is kind of funny because we're kind of around here right now, and we're passing all-time highs, just the previous ones. You get what I'm saying? So like last cycle, Hex was around 1 cent, and ETH was passing the previous cycle's all-time high. Well, now we're at 1 cent roughly again on Hex, and it's passing the previous all-time highs, which obviously is a lot higher. You know what I mean? Because we're a whole cycle later. But Hex is roughly the same price. But what happened last cycle is it was a good month or two after ETH passed its all-time highs, and it was a decent amount higher when Hex really, really started to move.
Yes.
And Hex moved very rapidly in a matter of just a few months. And actually the high point of Hex came before the second top of Ethereum. So Ethereum had a lot longer of a bull market in comparison to where Hex's was very much more drastic, but shorter as well.
Interesting. So if it happens again this cycle, that's what we could be expecting.
Yeah, well, I think what the lesson of that is if ETH breaks all-time highs, and let's say we're going into 5,000, right? Like, and Hex and PulseX hasn't made any really, really drastic moves yet. Last cycle, that was the case. Hex actually lagged a little bit behind. If I had to guess, I think the people who were really pushing the price up. Hold on 1 second, my cursor here.
Mm-hmm. And I see that, guys, the all-time high on Ethereum is 48.78.
Okay, I'm back. But where I was getting at with it was a couple months delayed. And if I had to guess, I think it's because people who helped get that momentum, people who sparked, Hex's like good run, is that Richard, is that other people, who knows? But I think they patiently waited for their ETH to be valued higher than the old all-time high.
Okay.
Before rotating into Hex.
Okay. Ethereum's all-time high was 48.78. So it was close to $5,000. I bet we go over $5,000 on or about September 17th. That's what I'm thinking. I think we're going to blow past that $5,000 mark.
Yeah, I hope. I think that the sooner we break through the all-time high, the sooner we start to trend upward a decent amount past, get into those $5,000, is the sooner we're going to get this PulseChain run. I think value is going to rotate from ETH, profits in ETH, to PulseChain, Hex, PulseX, which then helps pTGC and UFO, not only from that value rotating specifically into pTGC and UFO, but also from that value rotating into the RH tickers and other chips on the chain as well.
Right. I think some exciting things are happening with with not Pulsefolio. Go vote on Pulsefolio. I did this morning. Liberty Swap. Liberty Swap seems to be making like a black hole for PulseChain with all these bridges, and they seem to be very innovative, almost like they're an insider somehow. You know, I just think I think Liberty Swap is something special. If you guys want to just follow them on X and watch their tweets and look at what they're building for PulseChain, it's almost like they're building something that's going to funnel everybody over into PulseChain, just making it so easy, breaking down the barriers, and they've already done a whole lot to make that happen.
Yeah, interesting thing about it is a lot of people are calling it a bridge, but really, in my opinion, it's more like a cross-chain swap. They're pretty much adding like every token that they can that pops up that is, willing to show any bit of strength, even very, very new tokens that have like not even proven themselves. They're just adding that stuff on. Obviously, they're just routing through PulseX, so I don't think it takes much, or routing with pTGC. But they're just listing everything, pretty much making it to where all of these tokens are purchasable through other blockchains. And I don't think there's a crazy amount of blockchains listed right now. I think the big one that's coming here soon is like Solana. But what they're ultimately doing is making it to where people could take their stable on Solana, or maybe Solana. That's not out yet, so I guess I don't know how they have that happening.
Mm-hmm.
But you're just able to swap your Solana asset straight for whatever meme token or utility token or, RH token that you want without having to do a bridge.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yep. That's exactly, you put it the best way. It's a cross-chain swap. Soon to be, hopefully pTGC and UFO will be one of the selections on that list. I'm scrolling through the list right now on YouTube, and all the famous tokens are in there, except for pTGC and UFO. But ours is a little more challenging to code in, and from what I hear, they are working on it. So that'll be a big boost for us when we're on that list. Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't think it's too much of a big deal yet, right? We don't have a flood of people coming into PulseChain yet, but definitely when a flood of people are looking at PulseChain and trying to figure out how to get into PulseChain assets, it would definitely be cool to be on the easiest option there to make it easy for people to be exposed to pTGC and UFO. We know that bridging is difficult. It takes a long time. A lot of new retail people have no idea what they're doing. So if we could make easier avenues for them to be exposed, it's obviously going to increase the onboarding.
Yeah, there's actually a bucket ton of tokens on here. I'm guessing
it's a crazy amount. They just be adding. It's a lot of tokens.
It's probably 100 or more. So, yeah. Did anything exciting happen this week in crypto? Did anything exciting happen this week? I don't remember anything in particular.
Yeah, I think Richard was a little more active than normal this week, which was nice. We can look at some of his tweets. One thing I was kind of talking about with a buddy in DMs is it's crazy to think about like the Hex community before last year's bull run compared to like during the bull run / a little bit after. Like if you had to guess, how much do you think the Hex community increased in last cycle's bull run?
The Hex community evolved and it started from nothing in last cycle.
Started from pretty much nothing. There was people who obviously knew Richard before Hex, and those people were Hex OGs, right? People who got into Hex within the first year. And then the bull cycle came. And what do you think the increase of users was when Richard's, if you want to say it's Richard's marketing, I think there was a plan there, but also the community's marketing with green candles, with mailers, like it's almost the same exact playbook as last time. I think we think there's going to be some good green candles, which was part of the playbook. There was people becoming financially free, so they're YouTubing more. This is kind of, I believe, part of the playbook. There was mailers being sent out. That was part of the playbook. There was news ads, etc. I personally think the Hex community in that year's time probably increased by 20 to 50x.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would say there. I mean, he streamed so many times with other, big names in the industry, and he always brought people in from those streams.
Yeah, and just the PulseChain community too. I also look at like how I was onboarded. I was onboarded by an OG Hex person from day one Hex, just open conversation. Check this chart out. Check this guy out. Check this community out. And at that point, Hex was obviously up. It was like 1 cent, kind of trending upward, and the morale was really strong. And that's kind of when I started my research. Richard was streaming, chart was moving up, heading into a bull market. Like it all felt really strong. So I think it's a pretty similar playbook. But the crazy thing to think about is if let's just, instead of 50x, let's use 20x. Imagine 20xing the PulseChain community this bull cycle.
Wow. Yeah.
If we
That's
just
interesting.
did last time.
20
times the people or 50 times the people, obviously marketing, being active, onboarding. So I just kind of think like, hey, if we're doing a similar playbook, when some green candles start, when some people start streaming again, when Richard's marketing starts, if Richard starts streaming again, if we just do what we did last time, which actually we should do better, because if Richard starts doing it a second time, it's kind of like, hey, the first time wasn't a fluke. Like, this guy knows what he's doing, and he's confirming that he's not scamming some people from doing it again. I think it will be even easier to onboard this time with, like, it's showing it's not like, hey, it's kind of like someone makes a shot and you're like, okay, that was lucky, and then it makes the shot again right after. You're like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing, right? People don't get just lucky twice. So that was one thing I was thinking about. The PulseChain community, because the Hex community probably increased 20, 50x last cycle. Maybe more. I really don't know the numbers. I'm just kind of spitballing and guessing. But it would be pretty sweet to see if within this cycle of the bull cycle, the PulseChain / Hex community increasing by 20 to 50x again.
Yeah, I think those are very possible numbers. Very possible. Especially when people, and if they can find out, when they find out that they have copies of their Ethereum assets over on PulseChain, if ever somehow we can get the word out on those. But they need to have value, and I don't know what the value of those assets are. But the value of a network is in the number of wallets, in the community. So a 20x in wallets would be astounding on price. Because I think there's a, what's it called? There's a law. I don't remember the name of the law, but the wallet count has a direct effect on the price. And I don't remember the relationship, but it's pretty significant.
Yeah. So I think there's roughly 10,000 active users right now. So if we got the active users up to 200,000, that would be roughly a 20x. And just imagine that 190,000 extra users bringing in, I don't know, let's say $10,000. What would that be?
90,000 times 10,000?
190,000 times 10,000 is almost $2 billion.
Oh.
So imagine $2 billion coming over that bridge. Well, that obviously increases the price of PulseChain and every asset on the chain very much. Because we have to think about a lot of the value that's here on chain, this 10,000 people that are here now, the value that they are working with, a lot of people, is their sacrifice value. to where most of that value has never even been put into the chain for the most part, sitting in a wallet. So every new onboard this cycle, that's not going to a sacrifice wallet. That's actually coming into the chain and buying the asset.
Yeah. Well, Pulse added 21,000 new wallets in July, 38,000 in June. Right now we have more than 1.4 million wallets, Pulse wallets.
Yeah, obviously that's probably majority just people creating more wallets, the existing people here.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have probably 5 to 7 of those, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of the new wallets right now are still just existing people creating more wallets, but you know, in the future, I think we'll have an inflow of actually new people, which means new capital, new people to educate.
Yeah.
Banana, just chiming in there. So the law you're talking about is Metcalfe's law, and Metcalfe's law is if you've got X number of nodes on the chain, i.e. wallets, active wallets, say you've got 1,000 and you 10 times the number of active nodes on the chain and becomes, say, 10,000, you don't 10x the price, you 10 squared the price. So it becomes 100x the price on the chart. That's Metcalfe's law.
Yes. Perfect. Thanks for filling in that blank. Perfect.
Yeah, Doug, I wasn't even using, you know, the square with Metcalfe's laws. I was just saying, like, hey, let's just say we do somewhat similar to what we did last time. Like, I'm not even using that multiplier effect because, like, even those numbers become even more awesome. So I, like, am even using more, like, modest numbers. Like, we're not even considering, like, that crypto has more adoption than ever, that governments are finally giving us clarity on these things. Like, there's a lot of things that actually should make it even stronger. The fact that we're an entire blockchain now, just not an ERC20 token on a blockchain. Like, there's a lot of things that can make that, you know, more than what we did last time.
Yeah, totally. And if you think about it, let's say just PulseChain itself gets, you know, actually follows the Metcalfe law and decides to do, you know, over the next 3 to 6 months, decides to do a 5x the active users on the chain. Therefore, its price 5 squared. So that's a 5 is a 25x. Think about what pTGC and UFO could do that if they do a multiplier, and we have done it in the past, on top of that 25x. That's where it's kind of like, that's where it gets exciting.
Yeah. And if we...
There's just really not enough pTGC and UFO and PulseChain, PulseX, and X, like, even on the market for the rest of the world. And the only thing that can happen is it can just push the price up a drastic amount until it gets some of the existing people here to sell at those levels. But
yeah, so you're talking about
pretty strong. Like, it can go to some crazy numbers. And the nice thing about pTGC and UFO is within our specific community, the strong holders, as they hold strong, technically price goes higher, which then makes liquidity go bigger, which then makes value generation get bigger. That then increases the APY for those holders, to where if the system gets so large that the APY is enough like yearly income than those specific users are looking for, they might never even let a large portion of their initial even come back into supply.
Yeah, totally. And the number of available tokens, let's just say pTGC at the moment, that are available to purchase, isn't it under 5 billion tokens remaining?
It's roughly 8 billion.
8 billion, okay. Which still is minimal. Like it's
under 3% of the supply is even on the market, or in liquidity, not on the market.
In liquidity, yeah. So that supply shock can happen very quickly. Yeah,
if you can imagine just PulseChain, like we said, 20xing its user base, but there's only 3% of the supply of pTGC even on the market. And that's just this cycle. Like, that doesn't even include that, obviously we're aiming to be a multi-cycle system, and we believe PulseChain gets real adoption over the long term. Maybe it takes a cycle to kind of prove itself, and then the following cycle after, I think PulseChain is multi-cycle, and this is kind of a long game situation here. But even in this cycle, we can cover a lot of ground as far as onboarding, educating, increasing the pTGC asset and liquidity web along with the user base.
Yeah, totally. And I'm still in the camp where PulseChain's we're gonna get into the spotlight, and I don't know for how long this cycle, if you even call it a cycle, this bull run. But PulseChain is going to become at the focus of attention for whether it's a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and I think that's where the mania happens on our chain, where everyone starts flooding over and chasing the green candles or chasing the shiny lights, and that's where our community needs to, and is at the moment, like, very loud, because the loudest communities, sub-communities on the chain will actually draw the most attention for the new users coming across to actually park their money, like you're saying, after they buy PulseChain. And they're going to buy PulseChain, so we get the X's on the PulseChain purchase because liquidity pools move up, and then we also will hopefully get a portion of that ends up in our sub-ecosystem here over in pTGC and UFO. So I'm still a very big believer that we're going to get the spotlight. I really do think it's going to be more than just a couple of week fling for the entire crypto market to really be focusing on the Richard Hart PulseChain blockchain. And yeah, it's just going to shine in that. But it's just anyone's guess when that's going to happen.
Yeah, Kun, I don't know if you're here right at the beginning, what me and Banana were talking about, but we're talking about how we're kind of overlaying the ETH and EHEX chart and really looking at when EHEX started to move with Ethereum last cycle. And what we were kind of noticing is the big move up of HEX was after ETH, very much past the old all-time highs, right? And we're pretty much at or close to all-time highs of ETH right now. We're retapping that. So last cycle, before HEX really started to run, we had a full confirmation. It was already like, a good 20% past the old all-time highs. So I personally think it's going to be something very similar. I think when we've gotten a decent chunk over last cycle's all-time highs is when Richard's tickers are really going to start to make their move from people on ETH that are up or big players that are on ETH that are up that can feel the cycles becoming mature and getting closer to the higher levels. Like, yeah, it's probably going to run a little bit more, but not much. And that's the point where they're going to rotate value if this is Richard himself or, big players in our specific space that have been patiently waiting and letting the value revalue and then rotate it over. The other important thing to realize is the massive pump on HEX in comparison to like ETH's bull run was very, very short. It was only like a 3 to 4 month period. And then it started its massive downtrend. It actually ended sooner than ETH's all-time high. So I don't know. I think all those things are important. I think the one thing we have on our side this time is with PulseChain. PulseChain is a layer 1 blockchain, and I think it isn't going to have these massive pullbacks and stuff like ERC20s do on blockchains because of it just being the layer 1. But I do think that like Hex and PulseX is one reason why I've been focusing and like our community has been focusing on building these liquidity pairs, because these are tokens on PulseChain as a blockchain. They're working off of the X multiplier just like we're working off of. So I could be completely wrong in this assumption. Some people think Pulse is going to be the biggest mover. I think personally PulseX and Hex, pTGC and UFO are going to be very, very volatile compared to PulseChain. because PulseChain's kind of like the ETH, and then Hex, PulseX, pTGC, UFO. These are like the same ERC20s, but PRC20s on this blockchain. So when the value starts to flow into this blockchain, we're automatically getting the X's from PulseChain, but whatever value trickles down to these sub assets, small or little, is that multiplier effect, which creates, you know, in this game, sometimes life-changing amounts of money.
Yeah, that's actually very good. Yeah, it's a very good theory though, because I never thought of it that way. ETH needs to be an all-time high for everyone to be in profits and feel comfortable to rotate into the more contrarian type assets. And you're right, that's what happened last time, wasn't it? So
that's exactly what happened last time. And then there's there's even a video where Richard's sitting on a stage with Eric Wall, and he's specifically telling Eric Wall, hey, what if I took in money and I put that money in ETH, and then I waited for ETH to get far past all-time highs, and I just took a portion of that money and put it in my products and pushed my products up way higher than they would have ever gone if I just didn't wait for that period. And in my opinion, that's the exact playbook he did last cycle. And it looks like that's the exact playbook he's going to do this cycle. Is that
it's exciting? I remember that. I remember that.
Does that come from the Zach wallet? Who knows, right? If anything, I think it's maybe done through private wallets or even some of the private, like, well-off people he knows. It's just big players in our ecosystem. But as of right now, it seems like everything is aligning. If you look at the Hex chart last cycle, the thing stayed at 1 cent. It started lower. It was, 3 zeros and a 1 at like launch or whatever, or throughout that first year. But it did rise a little bit, and it kind of found that floor around 1 cent, and it was bouncing in there. And ETH went far past all-time highs before Hex made its move off of 1 cent. But when it made its move off of 1 cent, it did that 46x in a matter of just a few months.
Yeah, and I remember that so well because I actually got into Hex at 1 cent. And it was my best performing asset in 2021. And
it by far was like everyone's best performing asset. And that's why I think the onboarding was so extreme. Like how I talked about, like within those few months right there, like prior from a little bit before you got into even like a few months after the all-time high, when it started even coming down, like I do believe the Hex community in that time frame, which was like a 6-month time frame, maybe a little bit more, probably increased 20x, maybe 50x.
And yeah, because it still had pumps as it was coming down. It had come down, but then it still had like very volatile pumps to the upside. I remember that as well.
And excitement of PulseX and PulseChain coming out, and the fact that you're going to get your copies and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But that theory, that you're saying is actually very interesting because the biggest killer, like I got to be honest, I'm just level with you. The biggest killer this bull run has been time, because time it's bleeding, like it's hurting me. I'm sure it's hurting most people because the alts just haven't moved at all. Like last bull run, alts moved a year before this one, and alts we haven't seen a full-fledged alt season. So time for most people, and most people are in alts, they're not in Bitcoin and Ethereum, has been the biggest killer. So waiting just that little bit longer, I mean, it just hurts that little bit more. But yeah.
I think it's because, people create plans, right? Like even with any long-term investment, short-term investment, people create plans and they want to follow through with their plans. They're making these plans for a reason, and they have time schedules in their mind, and then they extend these time schedules out like, hey, this is going to take me a little bit longer. That's okay. This is exceeding what the time frame I was in, but hey, this could be extended. But then it passes that extended time frame, and then you're in your head, you're kind of like, okay, this is pushing it a little bit. I'm willing to stay along a little bit longer. I'm not going anywhere, especially at a loss. But then it even extends past that, and then it extended past that a few times more. But this isn't just PulseChain. This is a lot of alts, right? This is majority of alts.
Totally.
So I don't think like you're the only one or anyone's the only one. It's like everyone's in that same boat. And the cool thing about this cycle, in my opinion, is that we've gotten so much confirmation on crypto. We've gotten so much clarity on crypto. We've gotten so much energy into these mainstream assets like Bitcoin and ETH at this point, right? This is the tokens that governments and large companies have been putting a lot of focus on, not so much alts. But I do think we're kind of pushing into the point where ETH seems so, like right now ETH is tapped pretty much its all-time high. After it broke the all-time high last cycle, a few months after, a month after, 2 months after, that's when Richard's token, EHEX, made its massive move. So I personally think last cycle, what he did marketing-wise, strategy-wise, worked so well, you wouldn't really adjust that playbook that much, right? Like, you know what play works and at what time to use it. So I personally, for me, I'm like, hey, I think he's running the same playbook. It's just this cycle has been so extended that he hasn't gotten that confirmation of ETH breaking the all-time high, like far past.
Yeah, that's a really good assumption, because you're dealing with the same thing. You're dealing with human emotions, and let's be honest.
Well, you need the new money to be in too, right? Like when ETH is past all-time highs, that's the indicator that new money has moved into crypto, right? That the cycle is becoming mature. And if you're going to do this marketing push and then start getting excitement and showing people this amazing product, you have to wait until they're actually in the building.
Yeah, totally. You know, there's one point I do disagree with you though. I disagree with you on the fact that all of so HEX being the original asset, the RH tokens, and then PulseX are going to be the ones that are going to be volatile and potentially pump it a lot harder in terms of X's, maybe to the upside and the downside as you have the corrections than PulseChain, because I think PulseChain, being the spear of the whole ecosystem now, it's not the original one, but it's definitely the spear. It's the head. I do think that PulseChain is going to pump, and I reckon it's going to pump because of the fact that it is the spear, and it's going to drag everything else up with it. You know, either way, we win, which is the amazing thing. So we'll just
he can't. Maybe I should kind of correct. I think PulseChain's going to pump a lot, and you have to realize he can't pump his other assets without pumping PulseChain, because his other assets are connected to PulseChain. So all the value has to first move into PulseChain, where PLS increases first. This is like my theory, even with how pTGC and UFO are going to drastically help the PulseChain ecosystem in the future. If pTGC and UFO become legitimate stores of value that have proven themselves, and large players are willing to actually store $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million in this premier store value asset, well, the only way they're going to be able to be exposed to the pTGC code is by coming to PulseChain. And they can't just be exposed to pTGC. They have to come into PulseChain first, so they have to increase PLS with that 5 mil or 10 mil or whatever this big player comes in with. They have to increase PulseChain first to then get exposed into pTGC. The same goes for all other assets on chain. If Richard wants to move money to HEX, if he wants to move money to PulseX, he has to move that money to Pulse first, which then raises everything, and then he creates his own reflexivity, his own X multiplier effect with his own capital.
So you're saying whether it comes in through, let's just say, ink, or whether it comes through whatever, it has to. You're right. It has to come through PulseChain first, and therefore,
it pumps everything on the chain. It pumps everything that's connected to PulseChain.
Yeah, and we are connected. Like, I'm not going to beat around the bush. We're connected the most with the biggest pools, so we get that repricing instantly.
Yeah, that's obviously like the checkmate part to all of PulseChain is if money flows into PulseChain, it has to come to PulseChain first. Every token wins off of PulseChain moving up, right? And it has to go to PulseChain first. But then wherever that value goes, a portion of it will stay in PulseChain, like you're saying, but a portion of it, this is every blockchain, does make its way to the alts on the chain. Some people are going to want to speculate on maybe Richard's Pump.Tire's most token. Some people might want to speculate on P copies. Maybe they think there's value there. Some people might want to speculate on pTGC and UFO. Some people might want to speculate on PulseX and Hex. It really doesn't matter where any user wants to speculate, because we've created such large pools with all of these assets. If they go and speculate on any of that, what I just listed, anything that's in our web, they're increasing the price of pTGC when they do that. Obviously, what's best for our price is if they just directly expose themselves to pTGC by just getting pTGC, but there is benefits of them exposing themselves to the assets we're connected to too. When people expose themselves to the assets we're connected to, it actually increases our liquidity even more evenly with price, which actually makes the gains more sustainable. When people rotate straight into pTGC, you actually start spreading your price from liquidity, which then usually makes your gains a little less sustainable, because then your price is separating from liquidity. But when the tokens you're bonded to move up, your liquidity moves up evenly with price, making it to where there's more capital to tap into, right? Yeah. So there's pros and cons either way. But yeah, 100%. With value finally flowing into PulseChain, we have to remind ourselves as a community, we have to be realistic. Value has been flowing out of PulseChain for 2 years. There's been couple month periods where value has moved into PulseChain, and you can kind of see that on the chart with PulseChain moving up. And then we've seen what pTGC and UFO do when actually value flows into PulseChain. I personally believe there's going to be a good amount of value that moves into PulseChain here soon, and it's actually going to start to create an uptrend very similar to like ETH, right? To where, yes, it's not straight up and to the right, but cycle after cycle, you kind of are making new highs and higher lows, right? And these are, the 4-year cycles, or, even if the cycles kind of become less drastic because crypto's finally getting the adoption we know it should. Either way, it's just values over time flowing into crypto because people know this is a good hedge against inflation. And we know they're not going to stop printing the dollar. So as they just keep printing the dollar, more value is just going to keep flowing to good, sustainable assets that can hedge themselves against the dollar, which then just inflates this entire ecosystem and keeps having things move up, which if you're in the right products on the chain, pretty much you're in the scenario where you're in an asset class that just continues to go up, and you're getting yourself out of an asset class that continues to go down, the fiat of pretty much every country.
Well, it's getting exciting, man, because RH, his post is definitely cryptic. And
he literally wrote that exact same thing this week.
Yeah, did he? Yeah, there you go. And he's definitely baiting the whole of the crypto market. So it's exciting because something is definitely going to happen. And I don't know, I'm still in the belief that his core tokens, with the stripping of the liquidity, so the liquidity is very thin now, it doesn't take too much to pump those tokens. And yeah, there's going to be sell pressure in those tokens, those core tokens. But the amount of inflows that are going to be coming in are just going to outweigh the sell pressure. And I think we'll be very surprised because everyone's so used to not moving anywhere, and all of a sudden those God candles will come and nobody's going to be ready for them, and they'll happen so quickly.
Yeah, the sell pressure I don't think is going to be much if we have an actual bull market, right? Like when PLS is naturally moving up from an inflow of value, what that means technically is more value is flowing in than going out. Like there's always going to be sellers and there's always going to be buyers in every bull market, in bear market. But in a bear market, that means there's more sellers than buyers. And in a bull market, that means there's more buyers than sellers, right? So if we have a legitimate bull market here, what that means in simple terms is, hey, we have more buyers than sellers. And totally. That means PLS moves up. Of course, we're going to have sellers, right? There's people that have been in PulseChain for, technically 4 years, if you include the sacrifice, but 2 years, who do want to take a little bit of profits, who maybe want to repay themselves on maybe money they've taken from somewhere else that they maybe shouldn't have tapped into. I think that's a lot of the PulseChain community personally. But if we have a legitimate run here on PulseChain and we 20x, 50x the user base, the amount of profits that the existing PulseChain community needs to take compared to an inflow of possibly RH money, big player money, and retail money by us 20xing the community is so small compared.
Yeah. And if you go off Metcalfe's law, that's stupid numbers. You're talking stupid numbers if you just 20x the user base. If you 20x the user base, that's a 400x the price.
Well, and then you consider price going up, like what you're creating is people who start to become financially free. And if you have a bunch of people who are like financially free, they tend to talk to people about being financially free, or just they don't really brag. They're usually not telling everyone about a product that they're down on money, but if they're up on money, it tends to come up a lot more.
Yeah, and if it has to be the way of the world where we need the large global forces at play to ignite the bull market, like let's say interest rates, but I'm a believer that whether interest rates get cut in the States in September or not, I still think nothing is stopping this last huge push and repricing and flood of fresh liquidity coming into the crypto market, because it's going to be the most volatile part of the crypto bull run that we've seen to date. This cycle, it's just going to be I'll give you an example. A lot of people are worrying about Hex and the fact that Hex has whales and Hex has these large players where they've got huge amounts of Hex, and they'd be happy with Hex hitting, this is PHEX, hitting say like 10 cents, and then they're selling their entire stack and they're out. But then I speak to others who understand liquidity and understand the amount of money that needs to get injected into this ecosystem. I mean PulseChain ecosystem and Hex, not even talking about pTGC and UFO, and they understand that Richard Hart knows what he's doing. Also on top of that, and their price targets aren't 10 cents or 50 cents for the all-time high of Hex, but they're more in the $2 to $3 to $4 Hex this cycle, which if that happens, everyone needs to imagine what's going to happen to the repricing of our assets. So all of this is still on the table. All of this is still on the cards. So I just think everyone is going to be very surprised, and it always happens when you least expect it.
Yeah, we have to, any whale, right? Like, I think definitely there will be some sell pressure from whales. I think people have a little bit of PTSD situation going on from how big the retracement was. But I think with a vision and with some guidance and with a plan being shown here on PulseChain, I think a lot of like the ideas in people's heads of like, hey, I'm just going to sell all my Hex and get out of here will go away, right? I think they're just a little bit like fearful of like the situation that we're in. But with the plan being shown and with the fact that this can actually be a premier store of value, I think these whales are going to change their view a little bit, because there isn't many better things out there to actually put the value in. Like, yeah, buy a car, yeah, pay off a house, but where are you going to actually move this value that you're going to have built-in APY, deflationary systems, and price appreciation over the long term? Like, even if you, in simple terms, look at pTGC and UFO, let's say pTGC for an example, and let's just say it 2x's on average every year, just a 2x. And this is after the revalue of PulseChain. Like, PulseChain revalues 100x, we're all higher, we're all sitting on decent chunks of value, and we're like, hey, we've grown into this massive system. We're now a top 50 cryptocurrency. Now the average X that we do is just a 2x. We have billions of dollars of liquidity. We're getting paid APY, and the supply of this token is decreasing with every single transaction. and you got self-custody, and you're on one of the most decentralized chains that exist. Like, your community, your whales, in my opinion, have to have conviction in your protocol and believe in your protocol for what it's been designed for. So the same goes for Hex as well. The bigger players within Hex have to believe in Hex long term. They have to be willing to be a whale, and with being a whale, with power becomes responsibility. You actually have to help hold up the price of these assets to give them a higher value, which then increases your APY, which then increases the onboarding. You know, it kind of goes full circle. Imagine if the whales within real estate just one day woke up saying, hey, I don't want to hold value in real estate anymore. I don't believe in it, right? That doesn't happen because they actually believe in real estate and they have conviction in what they hold. But the same thing would apply if a few whales of real estate just woke up one day and say, I'm going to sell my whole stack. Well, they would crash the real estate market, and then it would find a new floor, and new whales could come in and buy the bags from them. The same goes for
totally.
The new players can buy those bags if old whales want out, and they can become the new whales, and they might have a new conviction, a new level of belief in the system long term, and that's what has to happen naturally.
Yeah, and I think most investors that are in at the moment, I mean, they believe in real DeFi, and I really do think that RH has got a few tricks up his sleeve where he may even be able to solve the biggest elephant in the room for all of crypto, which is once you've got the value and the new fresh liquidity in your ecosystem, how do you keep it there for the long term? I.e., how do you keep it there and keep it active even during a bear market? And I still think he's got those tricks up his sleeve that we haven't seen yet. This is one thing I can't even ask myself about, right? Is what do users need to stay? And I think it's an easier answer than people realize. Like, that's what's tried to be implemented to a level in pTGC and UFO. You need sustainability, you need liquidity, you need security, you need scarcity. So the asset needs to remain scarce. It can't just one day become not scarce to where everyone who believed in the product long term just gets constantly diluted. You need scarcity, and in my opinion, you need APY built into the code. You need APY. You need APY. You need a reason to hold the asset to where you can take profits without actually tapping into your initial. You need that passive income.
Yeah, you need that passive income to where you're being actually rewarded to hold up the price of the asset. If you're getting an APY, but it's coming from diluting your supply, you're not actually getting an APY because it's coming from the price of the asset. But if the asset's becoming more and more scarce, or at least the demand is heavy on the asset to take in the inflation of the product, the APY is your reward for holding up that asset's price, which then creates the sustainability factor, right? You need the sustainability. People don't like storing value in something that fluctuates too much. I think they're fine with decent retracements, 60% retracements, but if you start doing some 80% maybe, but if you start doing some really crazy moves, it's going to shake people out, right? Naturally, people get scared if their value is legitimately stored in this asset. I think Richard obviously has thought of all this stuff way before I thought of it. Everything I've learned has been from Richard.
I was going to say that's it. Like, you've learned everything from Richard, and we all sort of have, but you've really taken it on board, and then you've actively, acted on it by creating your own tokens, which is amazing with what you've done. But he's the king of passive income. And to tell you the truth, we haven't really seen the full-fledged of what RH did at the beginning of Hex for passive income, to locking tokens and earning up to 40 to 50% APY per year, per annum. We haven't seen that fully on PulseChain yet, and I feel like we're still yet to see. The best is yet to come. Like, we're about to come into this last parabolic leg. Who knows how long it lasts of the bull run? And he's just gonna pull these rabbits out of his hat, and he's gonna make the money stay. He's going to make the investors stick around.
Yeah, Richard's in a different spot than we're in, right? We are relying on Richard to create the environment for us, and then we're kind of creating our plan based on that environment he's creating. Like, we're creating pTGC and UFO based on an environment that Richard created for us. But he doesn't have that luxury necessarily, because he's the one that has to create the initial environment. He has to create technically the successful blockchain, which is a little bit on us to build good products, to help onboard, to educate on the product. But he's really having to build the foundation for us to then build our unique individual products to succeed. So I think his game is a little bit more complex. He's definitely got a different set of levers than I think we got in pTGC and UFO. The biggest one that I know of that I find very interesting is the fact that he kind of has all the value already to do anything he wants, to where pTGC kind of generates the revenue to do anything it wants over time and over its own success. So he's kind of sitting there with, as we all know, and this is just a public wallet, who knows how much this guy has personally, but he's sitting there with, possibly billions of dollars, let's say. Where pTGC has a decent amount of capital in the system, but it's kind of generating it every single day and growing every single day and evolving into the product it's going to be. We can't just wake up one day and say, you know what, today's the day I just want to send my chain to this whole nother level, or hey, I'm just going to let it wait out. I need to see who's going to be here for the long term. I need to, kind of test the community. I need to wait for prime times, like ETH being at higher levels, because why would I waste this value at lower levels? I've told them in the past via videos, this is exactly what I'm going to do. So we're definitely playing a little bit of a different game, but hoping for the same outcome, just through different routes and strategies, just due to the different tools that we have at our disposal. Not everyone has the same tool sets or skill sets or disposable income, but we're all kind of aiming for that same goal of creating products that help give users financial freedom, and not only changing our own lives, but changing the people's lives that are involved and believe in the code with us.
What's funny is, yeah, totally. I agree with everything you're saying. And what's funny is the fact that we spoke about time before, and time has definitely been the biggest killer in this cycle, because it's just taken so long for anything to happen, and we haven't seen a full-fledged alt season. Well, here's like I'll just point out something, and agree with me, disagree with me. Let me know what you think. But with RH, and when you talk in hindsight, USA, well, shit, yeah, that was obvious. Why did we not see that when we were going through it? Of course it was going to play out that way. So if you put yourself into the future and think how it's actually going to play out, you would say, yourself in the future would say, oh, that of course it happened that way. It couldn't have happened any other way. So let's think about this. I think the biggest play that he's made that hasn't even activated yet is the fact that he stripped the liquidity on the core tokens so much. He stripped them by so much that they can move to the upside and the downside so easily. Yet, and how long ago was that? That was like 6 months ago, maybe longer. And yet nothing has happened from that yet. Mm-hmm. But something will happen. It's just about timing. And time is the biggest killer in this cycle.
Yeah, I think everyone that is kind of squirming a little bit is just squirming because it didn't happen in their specific timeline with their plan. But I would assume in the same is somewhat with Richard. Like, I'm sure he had a plan in the timeline that he was looking for, and the market just doesn't work on your time. The market moves up and down every single day as it pleases. It's technically designed to get people out of their investments, and because in a way, pTGC is a little bit different because it is technically generating revenue and constantly bringing that revenue in. But the majority of market is a player versus player game. They're constantly trying to get the value out of users' hands into the bigger players' hands, right? This is constantly what's happening. You can see this with people getting liquidated all the time. Like, they'll set up the market to where it looks so obvious it's going to pump, and then people create longs, and then boom, they just dropped the market, pretty much liquidating a whole group of people because they're such big players. Like, this is just a game within the market. The nice thing about pTGC and UFO is really this stuff happens all day long. Every single day is going to happen forever as long as markets exist. And we're going to utilize this to generate revenue for the rest of the existence of PulseChain. But on the idea that you're just talking about with liquidity, Richard has said very many times that he does not care about adding liquidity to protocols early because he thinks that makes them too heavy to pump. He lets the pump add the liquidity. So the price only rises from value being injected into the product. So then when the price rises, that means value is being injected into the liquidity itself of the product, giving the asset more liquidity as it rises, and then obviously less liquidity as it falls. A lot of people are also worried about his blockchain having very liquidity on the bridge. But the thing is it doesn't need liquidity at the all-time lows. When people come here to be exposed to his products, they have to put the value in the bridge as they're bridging over. So the bridge will increase evenly as the prices rise on chain.
As they go up. Yeah.
Yeah. So and this is the same with every token. This is how Hex works as well, right? Like, he talked like, hey, we never added a bunch of liquidity. You can add liquidity, but where our liquidity comes from is from price rising, from people wanting to buy the Hex token out of this liquidity pool. And they put their PLS, or in previous cases, their ETH in the liquidity pool at that point.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing I wanted to say on the point I was making is that he's thinned out the liquidity. He did it for a reason. And yeah, maybe that reason was for us to drop lower before we go higher, to shake out the last week hands. And it's definitely done that. But the fact that we haven't had that massive upsurge yet, but he's done that, he's made that change for that surge up when it happened, means that get ready, get strapped in, because it's not too far away. And when it happens, it's going to catch everyone by surprise.
Yeah, I think it's massive for PulseChain Hex, PulseX's price. I think the fact that Ink's inflation is now down because of that whole, hey, I'm going to cut Ink's inflation, which then is going to naturally cut the liquidity back to the chain, which then makes it to where now Ink can kind of pump more, which then should increase the APY more naturally just from price moving up, which is overall better for the other RH tickers because now they're not tied to this asset that's just got this constant massive inflation going on, because if you're bonded to something with massive inflation, it will actually drag you down, just like how if something's going up, it will drag you up. So he kind of put a little bit of a Band-Aid on that, I think, for this run. And then he also did this with Hex. There was a good amount of inflation to Hex. With him staking his tokens, it actually kind of, in a way, cut the APY, which then cut the future supply coming into circulation and made the asset more scarce rapidly. And that scarcity, once demand comes in, you need the demand to come in for the scarcity to really have an impact. But once that demand comes in, people are going to realize really quick that pretty much all RH tickers out there, pTGC, UFO, these assets, there's just barely any out there for the rest of the world.
Yeah,
if we get any bit of demand, yeah, it's just a massive supply shock. There's just none for the rest of the world. We don't realize this right now because it's the same 10,000 users. But what happens if in this bull market we do what Hex did last cycle and we 20x, 50x the user base? There's just not enough supply for them. They have to.
So what happens? What happens then? What happens if you run out of supply?
Well, you can't run out of supply. You can't run out of supply. You can't run out of supply. You'll just keep forcing the price upwards and upwards and upwards, and every new user would be buying smaller and smaller token quantities for the same or more dollar value.
For the same or more dollar value.
It just forces the price upwards.
More expensive.
Yeah, it'll force the price upwards until it actually incentivizes the existing community to say, wow, let's just take some profits, right? Yeah, let's say supply shock comes, demand flows in. They're like, we want this hex, and it pushes the price up 20x. Well, there will be some existing hex people that are like, hey, I'm happy with this number. I'm willing to give up some of my hex. And then that throws it back into liquidity, which then brings down the price. But then if there's that constant still demand, then users are like going to say, oh, wow, look at this discount. Like, I need more of this because there's barely any of it that exists.
Yeah. So it's all about the bids and the asks. And as soon as they go on the chain, that's where the repricing happens. And that's where some gets freed up to fill the offers.
Yeah. So, like, you kind of have to ask yourself, how much of this hex supply, or even pTGC supply, UFO supply, is in hands that are willing to give it up 2x from here, 5x from here, 10x from here, 20x from here, 50x from here, and how much of it is in hands that aren't ever willing to give it up? I don't really know hexes, right? Like, a lot of it's locked, so they literally can't, which is super cool. With pTGCs, there's definitely a percentage of the holders that are looking for profits, that are planning on taking profits this cycle with possibly their whole bag, half their bag, a quarter of their bag, who knows, right? But I definitely think there's a very large percentage of the pTGC community that are willing to see this system out long term for what it's been designed for, a multi-cycle store of value system to where you actually have the opportunity to get in before the revaluation of the product, which is the revaluation of the value generation APY of the product as well. Because when the price revalues, that price revaluation is going to revalue your APY. If you're earning $1,000 a month right now and PulseChain 100Xs, you should technically be earning $100,000 a month in the future. That's $1.2 million a year. This is obviously a massive player within the pTGC system. But where I'm getting at is that massive player now is earning $1.2 million a year in a very scarce asset that's hyper deflationary. They technically don't even need to ever sell their initial.
Yeah,
which then makes it to where it doesn't matter how high pTGC goes. They're never willing to put that onto the market, which then just keeps pushing the price up even higher, which then increases the user's APY even more. You know, it like starts compounding itself, especially if the demand stays constant.
Yeah, well, from personal experience, and anyone else can jump in and give their thoughts on this. I know from personal experience that as an investor, holding my assets and, you know, seeing through a time period, I know the best play that's always worked out for me is to spread, you know, your tools wisely on that asset. That means to make sure that you are always in the system, you're never fully out, but you also take, you know, your healthy profits, you know, for your lifestyle along the way. And that's the way you win the most, making sure you're not fully in or fully out, and you always have a take on the investing business, company, asset, whatever it may be. So yeah, I definitely agree with you that you know, there's just going to be too much value for people to completely drop their entire stack at a certain point all at once.
Yeah, and even if they do, right, like the system's set up to where hopefully we create a line of people willing to pick up any discount. This is kind of what happens with any luxury good. Like, take like the luxury car market or the supercar market. The supercar market literally has a list of people who are willing to buy that supercar as soon as it gets put on the market.
As soon as it gets sold.
Scarce. So,
and, you know, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like I'll put it out there because B-Root's put it out there live, you know, on another discussion a couple of days ago, a week ago. He said that he's obviously a decent sized holder in pTGC and UFO, and he was so comfortable with these assets for the main reason was the fact that if he himself decided to completely drop his entire stack in one hit out on the market and be completely out of these assets, the price charts wouldn't even make a lower low on, I think it was on the weekly or daily or something like that. which is huge because it means it's still in an uptrend, and you've got one of the probably the decent sized players, who's been invested from the beginning completely out within the day. That tells you how strong these assets are with the size of liquidity pools that can handle that type of sell pressure. And like you're saying, Zen, when we get into a full-fledged bull market, let's say in the next couple of months, we really see that fresh liquidity coming in across the chain, the amount of buy pressure is going to outweigh the sell pressure tenfold. So, yeah, it's exciting to think about.
Yeah, you want to create that line of people, and again, like we're kind of saying, it's the same 10,000 people that have been here on PulseChain since PulseChain launched for the most part. So if we increase the PulseChain community by a 20-50x, there will naturally create a line waiting for people to take profits, because there's just not a lot of pTGC that exists. And yeah, I definitely think, people within pTGC will take profits. They deserve to take profits. But once that line is created, once there's that constant demand getting pushed in, once PulseChain is actually increasing in price, when that person, a person who maybe has 10 supercars, this is like a pTGC whale, says, you know what, I'm going to take 10% profits. This is good. I'm going to set this to the side. Like you were kind of saying earlier, like it's okay to diversify. It's okay to take profits. If you believe in the product long term, you'll maybe keep a portion of your supply, for the long term, but also take a little profits here or there and put one of those supercars on the market. If there's demand there, if there's a line away, it just gets bought. That doesn't mean you don't like supercars.
No,
You've still got 9 more.
Especially if those supercars provide you passive income as well.
Yeah, it's the opposite. I just like using that example because they are somewhat scarce in supply, and there's a lot of demand for them. And we're still figuring out the demand side on PulseChain because there isn't any new users really coming in yet. But
yes,
there was a lot of new users coming into Hex until there was. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
It can passed its all-time high. Yeah, until ETH passed its all-time high by a decent amount, a switch turned, and within a month, there was an inflow of thousands of people a day into Hex.
Dude, I remember that. It was just crazy. And the fact that it just switches so quickly, especially in crypto, in this asset class, it just catches everyone by surprise. People think we're crazy when we talk this way now, if they haven't experienced it, until they experience it. Yeah, it's nuts. And actually, just on that as well, do you think people want to buy without getting a discount? Most people in the real world, when they're trying to purchase a house, or they want to purchase a car, say a second-hand car, or they want to get something, they want to, and they're bartering, they want to make sure they get a deal. Well, in markets, if you're a smart investor, the only way to get a deal is when you see, say, a local dip. So the fact that one person who is, say, a big holder of the asset, UFO, pTGC, they decide to sell, that creates a slight dip, a localized dip, and then the new investors see that opportunity and they go, right, here's my chance. I'm going to get a slight discount here, or I'm going to get the discount that I've been looking for, and that's where they jump in.
Yeah, how I think in crypto it usually works is like a user will find out about the product, they'll like the product, they'll expose themselves to the product and buy where they kind of find out about it. And then in the future, if let's say this is a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, if a massive discount on the product presents themselves to it and they still believe in the product for a long-term play, this isn't like just meme coin gambling where you're like, damn, I lost out on this. This is like long-term store of value, multi-cycle systems. If that discount presents itself, a lot of people will double down on that discount, which then in this situation, let's say in the bull market, we increase our holder base times 5, right? Well, now we have 5 times the amount of people who are actually waiting for a discount, who most likely have the value sitting on the side.
That's very true.
Take advantage of it. We just don't have them yet. No one knows. Like I still believe, dude, no one knows pTGC even exists. Like us in this space talking about it, like let alone people don't even know PulseChain exists or Richard
It's crazy
Hardy.
how early we are.
Yeah.
And here's another thing to think about, Zen. I was just, as you were talking about it, that just reminded me. What about gameplay? Everyone forgets about gameplay, and the part of gameplay that I like the most is the fact that if you've touched an asset and say you're still part of that investing, realm, right? And you completely sell that asset, you're only human, and you'll never forget about that asset. So if that asset starts shooting up, you will, if you decide to sell. And I've seen, a lot of people get bled out of the PulseChain ecosystem. At these levels, they've sold at the lows, including pTGC and UFO as well. It's very hard for them not to look at the chart in the future. And if that chart starts shooting up and they know it's got another 20, 40, 60, 100, 200x to go, and they see green candles just pumping without them, the amount of gameplay FOMO that's going to come, and those investors that have sold their entire stack who don't have any kind of exposure to it are going to jump back in at higher prices, is going to be crazy. It's going to be like a domino effect. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, like a lot of people who have taken profits, they do understand the product. They just are still in the game of it being a speculative asset. But once the speculative asset side turns into like, hey, this isn't just a speculative asset anymore, like this has now proven itself to be like a premier store of value, that the price appreciation, because like with the X multiplier mixed with PulseChain success, could come in at any point. And if they are sidelined and they see it start to happen and they know how the system works, you're 100% right. Like out of anyone, that existing or that old customer knows what the product is, and they might kind of circle back as well.
They'll circle back. I've seen it happen so many times in the last 5-6 years in crypto. Yeah. So
there's a lot of people who had ETH at $100 and were up, maybe got in at $50, and then they're like, ooh, I made 2x my money. Like that was sweet. And then next cycle rolls around and it's at $1,000, and they're like, dang, like crypto's the next big thing. Like this is a better store of value than anything that exists. I now have to buy at this new price. Richard actually just made a tweet about this, I think 3 days ago, that most people are not traders. 95% of people are bad traders, and they lose to that 5% who are good traders. But the cool thing about if you just hold on to like good assets long term, if you hold on long enough, yes, the traders make the good money in like that short time frame, but it eventually comes to a point where you held through that whole cycle and now the asset's priced higher, and that trader isn't exposed to your product anymore, and they now have to buy the product at the higher price just to even trade it.
Yeah. 9 times out of 10.
Because they're still going to trade it. It doesn't matter how high it goes, but as it gets higher, they have to just buy it at those higher prices. But you've been along the whole ride. So if you bought it at $50, they bought it at $50. It goes to $100. They trade out of it. You're still in it. It drops back down to 75. They look like geniuses. You're sitting there holding it at 75. But then over the next few years, it goes to 500, and they want to go trade that asset again or store value in the asset. They now need to just buy it at 500. It doesn't matter that they made that trade 3 years ago.
And so all that effort and all that energy in trading, and the person who just believed in their product, purchased it DC8 on the way down, and held it, is actually better off in the long run. And he hasn't spent all that energy trying to trade it out. And the traders actually only, if they're a good trader, they only risk 1 to 5% of their entire portfolio on their trades. So they're not increasing their entire portfolio by the trade. They're only increasing the 1% of their portfolio because that's the trade they do. And, it's not like their trades win all the time as well. So let's say they win 70, 80% of the time. So they're spending all day, every day trading, when the investor who just believes in the product and DCA is on the way down and just holds for the lifetime, ends up just winning outright. With all that
and you have to also realize, like, 95% of people are not good traders.
No, they lose.
They lose. Yeah. So you kind of need to also know your place a little bit. Like, hey, am I a great trader, or am I the guy who's losing money to the good traders? If you're the guy losing money, that really the best play. Some people play the crypto casino, which isn't really trading. It's more like just meme coin gambling. But another great option is just spending some time finding amazing assets that you think will actually survive multi-cycles, and just parking a little bit of money into those products and letting it become a lot of money.
And then the price appreciation outweighs what we just said, the trade. But then on top of that, if you got like assets like X, pTGC, UFO, and you have passive income coming in on top of that, how could you think there's a better way to do it? There isn't. There really isn't.
Yeah, you could be making as much as traders just on your passive income, but not having to sit in front of your screen all day wasting your life. You could literally go and hang out with your family and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then the risk as well. The risk, like your risk level goes down like dramatically. And you're able to protect your asset.
The funny thing is really the traders are what are paying you a lot of that APY, because as all of the things
your assets
move up and down, up and down, up and down, we're providing that liquidity to let them do that, and then we're obviously making our share off of that. So it's kind of like, hey, keep trading, because that's what's paying our system. But luckily within this asset, if you're someone who's not a trader or don't want to be trading your whole bag, this is a great place to still generate revenue off of people trading, but you're not having to do it yourself. You're just holding the asset long term, let the asset revalue, which then revalues your APY, which then hopefully creates a revenue source for you in the future based on your position size that either you could live off of, or maybe pay some of your bills off of, or maybe just get a coffee here or there off of, just extra on top of your job. It all depends on when you get in and how much you put in.
That's actually funny that you say that. I'm just stating the facts here. Pump.tires does this because it's, traders or investors jumping into these coins, which then actually burns PLS, or, it brings it back to the system. But that actually came second to pTGC and UFO. And these two assets that you've created actually do that, and they did that first before pump tires. So it's funny how it all works out. But yeah, man, it's really just the investors that hold the assets that always get pumped up by the traders, with the money flowing back and forth, that win in the long term without the risk, which is cool. Very cool. I'd much rather have my money, my hard-earned money, parked into something like that than always having an element of risk, trying to get in and out, and you end up getting chopped up in the wash. So then you go.
I think Mando had something. You got something, Mando?
There's currently 16,058 holders. I think over the last 40-something days, the protocol's added almost 1,000 users.
Yeah, I've noticed that, man.
And I think that Prairie brought a metric the other day about 85% or something like this plus of holders have $1,000 worth. That is a very strong metric when you're looking at the user base and how many of the users have $1,000 or more. Because what it does is it gives you an idea of holders from top down or from bottom up, and what the activity of it has been. And so, like, when I'm looking at it, I think, okay, if 87% of holders have $1,000 of pTGC, and they're buying just in case bags because they think that it'll it's something that could massively rise in value in the future. And I do believe that, I do believe in PulseChain. I do believe that Richard has a plan. I do not believe that Richard gives a rat's ass about anybody else's thoughts about how that plan comes to fruition. With marketing, with asking for a van from a 501c3 and all this stuff that you see, this is all strategic, logistical, tactical, strategical, 5D chess, legal, everything. Richard doesn't care about any of that. But when PulseChain goes on to be, 5x sack rate, 10x sack rate, whatever it is, and the top 15% of holders, and let's just even say the top 100 holders in any protocol, see a revaluation of the entire blockchain, right? Those holders now have the ability now to sell less, earn more, while impacting the chart less, because the weight of liquidity has become that much more valuable in the ecosystem. So there's a time frame where you can, like we have a lot of people asking, why is pTGC going down against PulseChain? Well, because nothing goes up infinitum against anything. There's always ebbs and flows. There's always people buying and people selling. The unique thing about what I'm starting to see is that we keep talking for 24 months about the devaluation of PulseChain, about the relationship between the reflexivity and the liquidity pools, what that does almost instantly when it takes place to the valuation, the revaluation of not only the actual token price in USD, but the value of the underlying liquidity, because the system owns so much of the cores and those blue chip assets on chain. Yes, as we go up, people will sell. As we go up, people will buy. As we go up, the liquidity deepens and thickens. As we go up, the system starts generating way more revenue than we've ever seen, which buys the tokens off the market and gets them out of there for people who don't value the tokens. But what we have not seen is the top, let's say, 100 holders just murdering price at any time. What we have seen is a token that went from a $50,000 initial market cap with all the supply on the market to where we are today, right? To me, that's indicative of a very healthy system. And at the revaluation point, that's a massive tipping point in this system. Because now as a holder, it's like Zen's saying, if you're adding 1,000 new users on a pretty much dead blockchain compared to other chains, and people are starting to just take these positions and distribution is happening, and the system itself just keeps taking these tokens off the market, you end up with a group of people at the top that even whatever amount that they want out in, like Kuhn, what you were talking about, whatever amount of distribution they want to push back into the pools, that just becomes an accumulation event for everyone else who sees the value of the protocol. That's all that it does. Now you have a new floor because all of Richard's assets have revalued. Now you have distribution. Everyone who wanted to take a position in this at a cheaper price, and then it just goes higher from there.
Yeah, man, that's a very important point. It's the new floor. People don't realize that new floor it sets in.
So here's my thought. When I'm thinking about buying things on PulseChain or just buying things in general, I'm thinking, okay, am I just going to sit here memeing all day long? Sure, because I can make a ton of money doing that. But I also want to be looking at the new Bitcoins, the new potential things that can literally turn into billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars of market cap before anybody knows them. That's what you look for in crypto. It's finding those valuable things that are innovations, that are iterations on what's been built previous to it, and taking a long-term position in those things, right? I don't see anything on PulseChain outside of the pTGC ecosystem, outside of the cores currently, that I believe falls into that category. I talk to people every day. I got people hitting me up every day. Mando, look at this. Mando, look at that. Do a market analysis on this for me. And we're constantly, and obviously people can, this is just a fact, that people have noticed the power of this type of a system and have tried to copy it, duplicate it, mimic it, do whatever, but they never can, because it's not built with benevolence. It's always built with some kind of a caveat, or some kind of a trust me bro, or some kind of a percentage just goes to a group of people, or the liquidity's not burned, or whatever it is, because it takes a lot of benevolence and a lot of capital to create something like this that actually makes it work. My point is, once Richard Hart, and it is going to be Richard Hart that revalues his undervalued blockchain, because PulseChain is undervalued right now. Okay? Even if you try to rebalance the ratios against ETH, which when we forked PulseChain, for every 1 ETH, there was 1 million PulseChain created. That's an 85x from here, which would be a very reasonable thing to do for his first cycle. Let's rebalance the ratios based on how we turned 1 ETH into 1 million PulseChain, right? When that revalue, do you think all the outbound messaging is happening right at the right time, and this, in quotes, marketing stuff and everything that's happening and all of his bull posting and everything just for it to flounder down here? That's absolutely fucking laughable. That's laughable.
And we are still on the bottom. We're still on the bottom.
Yes. And so that's why you saw this month, PTGC could have just been taking so much more PulseChain and just pumping the chart, buying and burning. But instead, guess what it's doing? It's buying Hex on the cheap. It's buying Pulse on the cheap. It's buying Pulse and adding them to the liquidity pools. This is where real value exists. It's not in this BS short-term pump tire speculation bullshit where you got $20 of liquidity in a token and no one's putting any money into the thing. That's not where real value exists. Real value exists when you have millions of dollars of capital in something. On top of that, all the other memes out there, all the other things out there that promise utility and promise this, they're not creating any revenue. They're not generating anything but speculation. So I still see nothing on PulseChain that exists like it. I don't see anything anywhere that exists like it. And when PulseChain revalues, it's going to be really fast, because it always is. And it's going to go straight up to 3.001, 3.002, and then by that time you're looking at a $500, $600, $700 million PTGC with $100 million liquidity pool, and you're going, shit, why didn't I fucking do that? They were screaming it from the rooftops the whole damn time. There's not one piece of data that screams otherwise. If you think that we're wrong, tell us how we're wrong. Because the truth is there's nothing like this that exists on PulseChain. And I think that, I'm seeing people making their moves, and it does make sense that if you're super heavy weighted in something, ping off some gains, take a position in the cores, all that stuff. But I'm just telling you, and I'll get off the soapbox, the distribution is happening. Let me give you an example. I just noticed in the top 50 wallets this week that the 50th wallet now has less than 1 billion tokens in it. All the previous months, the 50th wallet had over 1 billion tokens in it. Now the 50th wallet has less than 1 billion tokens in it. So the distribution, even in the top 50 wallets, is thinning out now.
Yeah, Amanda, I'll just add to that. I've noticed that
that there's been, a little bit of selling going on in our ecosystem over the last couple of weeks. It just number one, it just adds to the massive cup and handle that's printing on the chart to show that it is a cup and handle, and we are going to explode to the upside very soon, in my opinion. But secondly, the ones that actually have clipped out quite large amounts in the one hit haven't been the large wallet holders. They've been the investors that have come in only quite recently, and when I say recently, I mean in the last 6 months. And for some reason, they haven't been patient enough, and they've decided to chase obviously something else, and they've completely dropped out of the system almost 100%. So the true value by the wallet holders that hold the large amounts know the true value, and they aren't moving too much at all. So that distribution is happening, on the higher end.
And I'll be honest with you, those larger holders are the guys who actually deserve to take profits. They've been holding up the price the whole time.
Totally, man.
Sitting on millions of dollars of an asset and not selling it.
But the crazy thing is that what Zen's saying, right, is that once we reprice higher, the passive income, the APY, the interest that they're going to be earning on those huge wallets is going to be so great that they're going to see the value of not getting rid of their initial capital. And that's where the value lies.
So the other thing I'll say to you is, it's like when you go back to just basic reality, if you're going to sell something that's great, what are you going to sell it for, right? Especially if you have a nice position. If you have a nice position, 100 million or more, that's a nice position. What are you going to sell it for? Well, the only thing that you can technically sell it for is the cores or memes. Obviously, for me, I've seen people sell for memes, make money, and then they bring it right back into the system. So they're either buying cores or they're putting it back into the system, and they went to sell to write up a meme, they made money, and they wanted more pTGC or UFO with it. That's what I'm seeing. Or they just completely get out because they just got out. But the point is, right now we're at that point where the founder of a massive worldwide blockchain named Richard Hart, who just beat the SEC, is bull posting about the future of his chain, is starting a marketing campaign that's hitting in weeks, which to me, I'll be honest with you, I'm just going to say my personal opinion, and I could be wrong. It's just a gimmick, plausible deniability thing, because the chain is about to get revalued. And I don't think it's going to come from Ethereum. I think it's going to just naturally happen. I think that it's going to be 10 times more bullish. But the thing is, if you're on PulseChain, what system has proven for 24 months itself? What system has made millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of PulseChain revenue and 100% given it back to its holders? What system has literally turned people into legit, and I don't mean like, okay, let's take TFC, for example. Love the guys, great run, awesome. But stuff like this, where you pumped on tires, low liquidity, okay, it went to a $50 million market cap, but only 3 people can cash out. Because there's no money in these things. That's just pure meme coin speculation. Well, what's the pitch? You got 3 people that dox themselves over a company, and I'm supposed to buy it because it's just cool? Like, no hate on that. Whatever works is fine for speculation. But pTGC is more than speculation at this point, because you actually have a proven system that has proven itself for 2 freaking years at the bottom of PulseChain. So I'm just at a point where it's just like, when I'm talking to people, like, guys, have your fun on your speculation. And let me say this one last thing. It makes sense, and I told Zen the other day, it makes sense that you have some people selling some of their bag at this stage, because they just want some more cores. for whatever reason. It's just fear or whatever the heck the reason is. But this is immutable code with the grace. It's audited, immutable code. You've got the cores and the LPs. You're earning more. The X's happen more, and you're gonna have these ebbs and flows against PulseChain. You just are, right? But when it revalues, I believe that you're going to see a revaluation of the chain that happens actually very quickly. You're going to see and it's going to go up to a certain point, and then that's the new floor. It's not going back down after that, right? It just doesn't. Once that happens, it'll happen, and then you're going to see that's the new price of pTGC. That's the new USD value of its liquidity web. This is how much more revenue that's being generated now. And man, those people that were locked in, those people are freaking locked in.
And the ones that drop their entire stack now, and then they miss that repricing, they won't be able to let go of that chart. They won't stop looking at the chart that they were in, but now they're out, and now they're trying to work their way on how they're going to actually get back in again. And they will buy green candles. They'll buy higher, because that's the game theory. That is it. And it FOMO.
Well, what'll happen, Kuhn, is that it'll actually bring in bigger whales, because now the system has proven itself. There's so much more liquidity. There's way less slippage. The system is just a megalodon.
Yeah, and so it's bringing in new whales, and also the people that decided to sell way too early who are getting back in as well. So it just creates a recipe for price appreciation and supply shock. And it's coming. It's just coming. That's all I can say. Don't miss the train.
That's all I got.
Yeah, one thing I think that a lot of people don't realize is we're still in a situation where it's all the same PulseChain people that have been here for like 2 years, maybe a couple new onboards here or there. But for the most part, it's the same 10,000 people that have been in PulseChain since pretty much when it launched. But so we're in a situation right now where Richard obviously looks like Richard's about to do something with his cores. And people are up on pTGC, obviously, because of its success and the fact that the code works as it's been designed. So people are like, hey, there is still a discount on Richard tickers. I'm up. Like, I'm going to rotate a little bit over to Richard tickers. I haven't seen crazy amounts by anyone, but just a little bit here or there. But once Richard's tickers revalue, let's say, because you have to realize, like, Richard's tickers are still cheaper than when most people bought them, right? Like, PulseX is pretty much cheaper than this, where probably most people bought. Pulse is cheaper, so they're kind of getting it at a discount. And we were talking about that earlier, is people tend to take advantage of discounts. And pTGC is pretty much one of the only places people can take advantage of a discount with, because it's the only thing that's actually been successful on chain, besides a couple other tokens. But when PulseChain revalues, let's say, to 5x here, right? That discount is now gone to this existing community, and pTGC also will be up like 5x or whatever too, or more or a little less, depending on how it reacts. But at that point, I don't think the pTGC community so much will be willing to rotate to take advantage of a discount, because the discount is gone, because the discount is no longer there on these assets. And then we have to look at the new users coming in. The new users coming in don't see discounts anywhere because they're new. They're looking at the prices that are shown when they walked in. So now when they walk in, they see pTGC at this price. They see RH tickers at that price. That's the rates that they think everything goes for, and that's the rates they're going to take action on. Of course, if they get in and pTGC does another 100x and RH cores do a 10x, and there's this thing of RH maybe doing another big thing, then yeah, maybe they do take some of the profits. But when the new people come in, how we are talking about that the user base on PulseChain could increase by 20, 50x throughout this bull cycle, they are setting themselves up at this new price ratio between pTGC and PulseChain. This is not the price ratio that our community got a year ago, right? And this new price ratio is not going to be the new price ratio 5 years from now. And we have to understand, as we're successful and as we outperform the things that we are bonded with, some people do take profits into those things, and that's okay, right? This is every token that exists. There is no token or any asset that operates any differently than that. But the cool thing about pTGC is even when these people take profits, they have to make the foundation of the system stronger for the future generation and the people who are willing to hold longer. They have to do this. And all the market makers have to do this as well as they fix prices. But every single time someone buys, every time someone sells, as possibly 20 to 50 times more people even come into PulseChain in the next 6 months, they all make the system stronger for the future of the system. A great example is, in the last 24 hours, we've bought and burnt, I think, like $25,000 of pTGC.
Yeah, I mean that's like a user coming in for 25 G's that's never selling into eternity.
Yeah.
Like we're literally adding eternal buys forever.
And it's going to happen, and it's going to happen forever. As long as PulseChain exists, there's going to be this demand side of this protocol that is a new user at whatever price every single day this asset gets to, that will always buy pTGC and never sell it. Some days more than others, of course, but every single day you can take a look, and there is a buy and burn happening in pTGC's code.
It's an interesting dynamic on PulseChain. Just the way that the community of active users on PulseChain operates, how they support things, how they outbound message, and I'll be honest, like it in a way, the way that people are on PulseChain currently is giving people an opportunity to buy an asset like this so, in my opinion, this is not financial advice, but so undervalued because everyone is just so worn out from the Richard Hart journey. Or there's just a lot of people that are just very weary about talking about anything else publicly. Or that's just all PvP and they were in and they left. But it gets frustrating, to be honest, because there's just nothing like this. And you would just think that there'd be so much more energy and positive outbound messaging from larger individuals outside of like a core group of people. Adoption, just wanting really awesome things to do really, really well on PulseChain to garner adoption. But it's just this big sect of things, right? But at some point in the future, you're going to have so many more users, and they don't care about any of us. They don't know any of us. They don't know Mando. They don't know B-Roots. They don't know RG3. They don't know Rackham. They don't know anything, right? All they know is this new blockchain is looking phenomenal, and let me go see what the most powerful things on this blockchain are. That's all that they're going to know, right? Right now, it's just a small community. But with the user base of PulseChain, pTGC is not getting the respect that it deserves yet. It's just not. You got a lot of people who talk crap about, it or try to mimic it. So they launch something and then they just want to extract value from it. You guys all know. You guys have been here with us from the beginning, right? But when Richard decides to push the button, and it's all going to be Richard pushing the button, and revalue his chain. Guys, you guys know if you've been here for a long time, what has he always talked about? talks about letting it flow, letting all the non-believers leave, and that's where we are right now. Period. End of story. There's nobody in PulseChain that remains that doesn't believe. All of the weak hands are out. All of the whales have sold that are going to sell. We're right at that point where now you go into an uptrend. And once that uptrend happens, you ain't going to have a choice but to show respect to a system like this, because there's just going to be so much value impregnated in the system that you just can't argue with it anymore. You can't have people trying to FUD it or anything like this. It's beyond reproach at that point. To be honest with you, pTGC is beyond reproach now for anybody who's been involved. For anybody who's been listening to Zen day in and day out, and somebody like Prairie, just such great human beings, such a great founder in Zen, who's literally just gave it all, in one place, 1,000% integrity. You don't find this stuff very often in crypto. And trust me, I've been around a long time, especially on PulseChain. It's going to be very interesting, because when these assets, that the Grace currency and UFO, that this ecosystem, when the assets bonded to these assets massively revalue, it's going to be a whole brave new world. And everyone's going to be memeing and trying to meme. And guess what? The people who held these tokens, they're locked in to a whole kind of different version of wealth. It's not like everything else. So I just want to just say, Zen, I can't tell you how much, man, I appreciate the integrity. Because in crypto, there's just not a lot of integrity, man. The amount of selflessness in the system that's built in, not a dollar has gone to anything but the users for 24 months. And so this is what I mean. At the revaluation, you're going to see the system. You're going to see a lot more volume. You're going to see a lot more capital. You're going to see a lot more buy and burns. And there's a strategy for everything. And everything that is strategic about this system is designed to do one thing: enrich the users and make the tokens more scarce. No other thing has a system to do that. Everyone wants to talk about how many X's something is going to do, but they don't ever talk about how they're going to do it outside of just finding the next guy to be X in liquidity, right? This system is different. It's unique. And if you don't know anything about it, for anybody listening to the recording, do your market analysis, your research, go into the TDG, reach out to Zen or myself or whoever, and just really understand what this is, because I do think that, based on Richard's outbound messaging, that the chain's about to be revalued very shortly, and I'd be very surprised if it wasn't by end of September.
Yeah, man, I'm just going to add to that. And everyone here, most people probably already know, but Mando's so right. It's not funny, because if we don't get any buys and sells on pTGC and UFO over the next period, and PulseChain is and Hex are going up, RH, it's pretty much almost baked in that this is going to happen, because pretty much most of the jets are out, and his entire plan is coming into play. If we don't get any buys or sells at all, we reprice up with the cause. It's mathematics. It's baked into the tokenomics, the mechanics of the system. So I still don't understand how anyone can miss this opportunity. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. It really is.
Hey guys. Morning. Hey, I have a question. So I would like to know, what the DAO revenue is going to look like at a 25x or 100x from here. So can you please tell me what our average DAO revenue is for a month?
Prairie, do you have those numbers?
I don't. I haven't tracked any of that.
Okay.
So, let me just get my computer turned on.
Sweet. Because if these LP pools revalue to the levels that we're talking about, the PTGC DAO is going to be one of the most powerful things on this chain.
1,000%.
Bingo.
100%. And this is what people like. It's like, how do you not understand this at this point, 2 years in? What are you not understanding? The system, the DAO is already generating millions of dollars a year in Pulse now.
Yeah, so the last month it's generated $195,000, so $200,000 pretty much.
Holy crap. Wow, dude, at the bottom, that is incredible.
So if you just increase it evenly, which again, I think it's going to increase with a multiplier, just because if PulseChain increases, it's not just increasing the liquidity, it's also increasing the user base. But let's just say, you know, if you take $200,000 and times that by 25, like you're saying, that's $5 million a month.
A month. That's over $1 million a week on a 25x. A 25x.
Yeah, and Ty, that you know, that's a lower amount of what we've seen. I mean, what we've seen at higher levels is much more than that at higher revenue generation months, right? So if you take the mean, it's even more than that. And this is literally on a freaking dead blockchain. Like, what happens when PulseChain? What happens when this amazing, awesome philanthropist, billionaire founder revalues his freaking blockchain, dude?
Yeah, what happens when we're on a blockchain when there's actually a net positive amount of new people / new value flowing into it instead of out of it? Doesn't even include what Richard does.
Yeah, that's something I've been trying to point out on these streams that I've been on. Is it's one thing to have a sustainable system, but it's a whole nother story to have a DAO that allows you to navigate and not be just a static system. Mm-hmm. You know, like every single project that doesn't have a DAO is a static system.
Yes.
Banana had the best analogy. Pretty much every token that doesn't have a system at play to adjust with every circumstance thrown at it and market cycle is like a train on a track. If that track is damaged, or if there's an object in front of that track, you are forced to run into it, with a lot of the time derailing the train, right? If there's an issue in front of you, or something that's changed, or an adjustment that needs to occur as far as vision, or, you know, just PulseChain's a great example. What PulseChain is today is not anything anyone would have expected 2 to 4 years ago for PulseChain. Prices, environment, everything. It's constantly evolving. This space is constantly evolving. There will be new things coming out. Crypto will evolve, everything. But what pTGC has with the DAO, it's a decentralized and automated way, which is important because you want these things decentralized. You don't want them centralized to be able to adjust. You want it to still be a decentralized system, but it gives us the ability, like a boat on an ocean or a boat on a lake. If something is in our track, something is in our way, we can easily just veer away from it or go towards better opportunities when they present themselves. With a standard system, if a better opportunity presents itself, there's nothing you can do. You're just going in the direction that track is putting you.
So important. And I think, you know, it's hard to really like quantify it now, but like if these LP pools revalue, I think it's going to be a very easy talking point.
Yeah. So one thing I agree with you, Ty, is right now pTGC has been operating at the level, and us, like people who are very in tune with PulseChain and, you know, in tune with pTGC, we're talking about these numbers, and the numbers are definitely decent, right? Like value generation of pTGC or DAO generation of $20,000 or $200,000 in a month, right? Like, hey, we've generated $200,000 in a month. Really, that's really good, right, for a decentralized system with no overhead. But that attracts some people. Some people can see it, but it's not so loud and so bright to where anyone can see it. It gets the attention of everyone. But what happens when that's $5 million a month? It's very, very difficult at that point to not notice a system that's generating $5 million a month in revenue to do whatever they want with it. If it's buy and burns, if it's LP ads, if it's a reserve of stables for the next bear market, whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's the bigger pTGC gets, the harder it is to not notice what it's doing anymore.
I think something I'd like to
100%.
Something I'd just like to raise for discussion is that if we're doing 200,000 a month and we have no overhead, then really we're doing the equivalent of a VC, a venture capitalist backed group, doing like $1 million a month, because they would have to have that amount of revenue to do 200,000 in going back into the protocol. So really, I think that pTGC can really perform at the same level as that VC protocol with only 20% of the economic energy.
Wow.
Right? For 1/5, we can achieve the same outcome. And that's just an interesting thought.
Well, and not only that, you can also look at it like this. You have a system that has the ability to just very simply buy out anyone who doesn't want to continue to hold their positions as they just scale out of the system, and all those tokens get redistributed, right? So you have a system that's just, and this is like with no volume. Imagine when you have a system where you're generating millions of dollars of revenue, and the system can literally just buy any holders out that have larger bags as they take $50,000 clips, and you're talking about at that point, $100,000 sell, it doesn't even touch the chart, let alone the fact that the system can buy users out. Once whoever's out is out, dude, what happens to the freaking price?
Yeah, Mando, if PulseChain revalues 25x, the $100,000 sell that you were just talking about is the equivalent of a $4,000 sell today.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. When you look at the assets that are in like the top 100, even top 200 on CoinMarketCap, a lot of those are like crypto companies with a token strapped to those companies. And those companies have forms of utility behind them, but a very small amount of the value that those utilities generate get to actually go to the token price or the token holders. Majority of the revenue those companies generate go to the overhead of the company itself. So I 100% agree. As we make our way, as PulseChain successful, right? We believe PulseChain is going to be successful, as we believe we're going to be successful. As we make our way into like these bigger dogs' house, we're going to have a system, and this is in business, it's very similar to a business that has very low overhead, who just is delivering the same level of product as you, possibly a better product, but the overhead's just not there because it's a decentralized and automated system. So if we're generating $5 million to the DAO a month, and even if these other companies are generating $5 million a month, but you're right, they might 80% of that, probably more. I bet very little of it actually even goes to the token price to the holders. I think that's kind of just really it's all designed to just feed them. So we have a system where our $5 million gets to go to LP, to reserves, to buy and burns, competing against companies that none of it pretty much does, or a very small percentage of it does. What that does is it makes us a very, very fierce competitor, right? Mathematically.
Yeah, and we're not just competing against them. We are, we're speaking to the customer. At the end of the day, it's what benefits the customer is what's going to make the customer make the decision between the two products. This product benefits me way more. Going with that one. It's very simple. So we're not exactly competing directly against the company. We're actually winning over their customer base, which is far more of an important
Yeah, we want to win over the customer that, wants to store value in digital assets because of them being a hedge against inflation. And if we can deliver better price appreciation, better security, APY built into code and deflationary tokenomics, there isn't much more, right? If over year spans, if we have constant price appreciation, obviously there will be dips and bear markets and stuff, but overall our price appreciation is more consistent than the other large asset class. If we have a scarcer supply that decreases with every single transaction, if we have more on-chain liquidity, if you can earn APY by just holding the asset in your own wallet so you don't even have to give up custody, these are the features people are looking for to store value. The thing is we're just right now making our way up into the range to even get noticed by these people. The asset that pTGC is today is not what it's going to be a year from now, 2 years from now. It's going to be in a completely different class when we make our way, or if we make our way into the top 50 of cryptocurrencies that exist. Because now we actually have the ability to get the attention of these people who have $10 million, $20 million to store on chain. They're just looking for the right product to store it in. If we're a system that takes 100% of the revenue and gives that revenue back to the holders via APY, buy and burns, reserves for bear markets, etc., compared to possibly an asset where all of that has to just go to overhead of the company, it makes us a very strong alternative, right? Because we will be working to bring that customer base over to us, and we're not going to get all of it, right? Especially because we're new and we're a brand new style system that's still kind of showing what we can do. But I do agree that we'll get a good chunk of it if we can prove to be those things.
I think when we get there, what's going to happen is we're actually going to have the largest liquidity pools in all of crypto, any asset. And that one data point alone is going to be a marketing strategy.
You have to pay attention to Bitcoin and Ethereum being these off-chain liquidity. But take away some of those the largest on-chain and stable coins, right? Those ones are very hard to compete against. But let's rewind to maybe 10 and below. These are a lot of companies, and on-chain liquidity, I 100% agree. We will be blowing them out of the water. A lot of them don't even have 100 million in liquidity. With just a revalue of PulseChain, our system can very much have over $1 billion in liquidity.
Right.
And that's not just liquidity backing the asset, that's liquidity working for the asset. So that's what's really unique about our system. Every user that decides to store value here is actually working for the system's price appreciation at the same time. So their value being within the system is working for their own personal APY, along with working for the price appreciation and scarcity of the individual assets. Wealthy people understand these concepts. People gambling on meme coins, not so much, right? That's what I mean. Is we started as a speculative asset and we're evolving into the store of value. As we evolve, we're going to start hitting different clientele who actually understand this protocol for what it's designed, and they understand how these features operate. And I think some people that take advantage of these lower prices do understand it, right? But we're still evolving, right? So you're still speculating that PulseChain is going to become this chain that we personally believe it's going to become. You're speculating that pTGC evolves along with it, and see, these are kind of the risks that we're taking right now. But if we conquer these risks, very much so, in my opinion, we become a premier store of value system. A lot of people think that the fee entering in and out can be a detour or deter people from doing it. But if you look at some of the largest store of value systems that exist in real life, there's fees to do so. It's not stopping anyone. some of the biggest markets have fees to enter in and out.
Mm-hmm.
No one cares if the price appreciation is more consistent, the APY is consistent, and it's a scarce system.
Yep.
No one cares about a 5% in and out if you're doing an average of a 2x, 10x, 20x, whatever the system ends up being in the future after the revaluation. If the price appreciation is consistent and better than everything else, the 5% is nothing.
So all right. So Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin gives you no more Bitcoin, gives you nothing. Doing Ethereum staking gives you like 5.7%. If you were to do like a USDC stake and get like 7.9%, when an investor looks at all these options and then they see pTGC ringing in like a 40%.
So real quick on USDC, because I'm not familiar with USDC, is this through Coinbase where you're giving up custody, or is this self-custody system?
Yeah. No. In any case, you would give up self-custody. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, with ETH, you're not staking. You have to validate, and that's even
that's
worse.
exactly what I was going to say. Is the entry point? The entry point to get on the ETH staking is massive. If you want that APY, massive. So you can actually achieve a better APY with a lower entry point, which is worth highlighting, right? That's cool.
Well, and even like doing ETH validating and stuff like that, like that's a headache that a lot of people don't want to deal with to earn that APY.
Right. And these, they deliver a higher percentage than a savings account. So they're beating traditional finance, but they're still not performing.
Well, I think they're performing. ETH's performing great compared to traditional finance.
Well, ETH for sure, but
that's why so much value is moving to Bitcoin and Ethereum, because they are becoming the premier places to store value because of their consistent price appreciation, the fact that they have the liquidity, now that there's clarity with the government. But that doesn't mean that new systems, even if they're smaller, can't evolve and grow into also premier store values that, have APY written in code to where you don't even need to do anything in particular to be exposed to a competitive APY. The APY isn't coming from inflation. It's coming from a hyper-deflationary asset. There's possibly billions of dollars of liquidity backing it on chain. And on top of that, you have self-custody.
Yeah, sorry, I meant just, when I meant not performing, I meant the yield return on these alternative options. Not the asset. Yeah, ETH and Bitcoin are definitely performing.
That's the cool thing about even pTGC, right? The yield, like a lot of people when they look at traditional finances, they look at the price appreciation almost as the yield, right? To where in crypto we make sure to keep those things very separate. To where the price appreciation is one thing. Like we could be making 100%, 200%.
You're right. Yeah.
%. We're like, maybe if you have a rental place, right? You have the price appreciation of the asset, and then you have what you're making passively off the renter as well. So those are somewhat similar. A lot of times you owe money on these rental places, so you have to give like a good portion of that rent check to the loan that you took, etc. To where this system, you could technically get a very large amount of money in a system without taking a loan because of the revaluation. That's the opportunity that's there, in my opinion, is you could take a risk, let's say $10,000, which is risky for some people. Maybe that's not risky maybe risky for you is 100,000. But if there's 100x here on PulseChain within pTGC, you turn $10,000 into $1 million, or you turn $100,000 into $10 million. Well, now you're earning a competitive. You also are in a hyper-deflationary asset that decreases with every single transaction. And if the system proves to have more sustainable price appreciation than even the best store of value systems that exist, let's say it is more consistent on price appreciation compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum, like bigger gains with maybe equal amounts of retracements, that would be very, very interesting to find out, right? Like, hey, I'm now holding this asset, $10 million of it. I'm getting paid APY in a hyper deflationary asset, and it's appreciating faster than Bitcoin and Ethereum.
You made a phenomenal point with a stock index. They count its APY as price go up.
Yeah.
So the APY off a stock index is the price going up. Whereas here in crypto, right? So here in crypto, you have price appreciation and you have APY. They're two separate things.
100%. Also, with a lot of systems, you have to keep in mind they'll pay high APY, but the price appreciation will be garbage. So if your system can appreciate in price, let's say it's paying out crazy APYs, like 100% APY or 50% APY, but if your asset's constantly moving down or flat, you're better off just with a price appreciation aspect, right? So there is like a give and take relationship there to where I look at it like, hey, APY is great, but it has to be competitive and justified. If it's not justified, then it usually comes from the price of the asset, and you're better off just having that asset appreciate in price anyways, because then at least you can market a chart. I guess APY you can market as well, but if your chart looks super bad, it's really hard to sell someone on APY anyways. So you kind of want a little bit of both. Like, hey, look at this chart, and you're getting an APY, less tokens in existence forever.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all the time that we're gonna have in the next next bear market, because it's gonna give us a lot of time to actually do data analytics on what our actual APY was for 1 year during a bull run.
Yeah,
it's dependent. It's dependent for each individual, right? It matters when you got into the system. That's one reason why I've been like working so hard on like screaming at top of the roof, like, hey, discounts are here right now, because what you're entering in today at is technically undervalued if everything revalues, right? If you put $10,000 in and everything 100x is, and now you're sitting on $1 million and you're earning an APY that's competitive on $1 million, but what you put in is only $10,000, you very easily could be earning $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year, which technically is a 300% APY compared to the amount of value you put in. But if you're someone who comes in at after the 100x with $10,000, well, your APY is not going to be anywhere is good, because you didn't get the price appreciation of the revaluation of the assets.
Okay, so I've actually been looking at APY in a way like completely wrong. So definitely another angle to look at it. Of like, yeah, you're right. Like it's an APY on $1 million. So you could pay $10,000 to get APY equivalent to other systems on $1 million. And that's
with
awesome.
The revaluation. Yeah, that's the opportunity that's presenting itself right now, is you are getting in before the revaluation, which then means your initial gets revalued, and now you're earning the APY on the revalued system, where a lot of people are not going to get that opportunity. They're going to find out about pTGC after the revaluation. So they're going to have to get that $1 million APY, they're going to have to put in $1 million, not 10,000. And they're waiting for the next revaluation, which could be after a whole cycle, PulseChain revaluing, pTGC just doing its thing, which I think still any opportunity moving forward, as long as blockchain does good and the code runs good and all that kind of stuff, should be new good opportunities as it goes up, as discounts present themselves. But there is a crazy opportunity right now that you're able to get into the asset before the reevaluation of the asset and the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
even people that get in after the revaluation. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. Sometimes it's just funny that I just kind of sit here and I'm just like, what do people not see about this system at this point, right? Like, it's so different than anything else. You can't have these conversations about anything else. They just don't exist. And it's going to be such a it's just going to be such a hindsight is 2020 situation when I'm so freaking damn sick and tired of saying when PulseChain revalues. I'm sick of it, dude. Like, PulseChain needs to be revalued. It's so undervalued for what it is compared to other like-kind things in the marketplace. And when that happens, this conversation is going to be completely different at that point. You know, it's just because all of the math that's been Den's been like you said, he's been screaming about it from the rooftops. When it all comes to fruition, it's so much beyond the "I told you so." Because when you have when you can actually show with real data and information like what's actually been happening this whole time, you know, in crypto for the most part, it's a bunch of sleazeball car salesmen that are just selling you a bunch of BS. They have nothing whatsoever to back all the claims, all the this is going to happen, that's going to happen rhetoric, right? But with this system, you have the ability to literally just lay out for somebody and just set the table as to what's actually happening. The only caveat, the only kind of like concern trolling that people have right now is okay. There's people that have a lot of the tokens and they can sell. But that exists in everything, including PulseChain, including Hex, including SHIB, including anything. But none of those systems have a actual revenue generating with no overhead reality, with millions of dollars in assets that have an answer to buy out anybody who doesn't value the tokens. It's just, to me, it's just such it's actually simple when you look at it from a standpoint of, wow, when Richard just makes the chain go, and he has to. I don't give a damn how it happens, he has to. The chain has to be revalued because he can't allow his blockchain to remain undervalued anymore. You just can't. The chain has to be revalued. And there's just way too much capital, and it takes very little amount of capital to revalue the chain. And then that was it. And we've already seen the bottom triple bottom. The bottom looks to be in, and now we're on an 8th or 9th now weekly uptrend, weeks out. So what happens now is we're talking about, wow, pTGC just got revalued. It's now at a $600-700 million market cap. The liquidity's there. The revenue generation is much stronger now. And what's the conversation look like then, Zen? Right? Let's just fast forward. What is the conversation now?
Yeah, well, at that point, the system, in my opinion, evolves from a speculative asset where we're speculating on the revaluation to the conversation is, okay, we had the revaluation. Let's check out the metrics compared to the hypotheses that we've been making. So, like, one of the hypotheses that I've been making is, hey, I think this, but
you got to repeat that because you cut out.
Sorry, yeah, I'm getting phone calls. One of the hypotheses I'm making is I actually think the code's going to increase greater than with the blockchain, but I like to just use the numbers with the blockchain because they're easy to work with, and we know the liquidity is going to grow evenly with PulseChain, which means market makers need to move the value. But after the revaluation, we're no longer speculating on the revaluation. We're in it, right? We're seeing it. So now we get to study how the machine is operating off of the revaluation. We could be sitting on technically hundreds of millions to billions of dollars of liquidity, depending on how much PulseChain revalues. We could be buying and burning hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars of pTGC daily/weekly. We could be paying out hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars weekly, monthly of APY to holders. The DAO could be generating this amount, and we could be doing strategic moves like buying birds, LP ads, stablecoin reserves with that type of value. So at that point, pTGC evolves from the speculative asset that it is today, with hundreds of X's still in the tank because of the revalue or the undervalued blockchain, to then, in my opinion, a premier store of value system that is worth millions of dollars of capital coming over the bridge for this specific protocol. And when millions of dollars come over the bridge for this specific protocol, it's not only increasing the price of pTGC and UFO, it's also increasing the price of PulseChain and all the other assets that we're connected to. So it evolves, right? Like people who were getting into ETH in the very, very early days, it was a speculative asset at that point with hundreds of X's, thousands of X's in the tank. But now ETH has evolved into this premier store of value system. People are creating treasuries of it because of what it's proven to be. But there's still tons of talking points because now it's evolved into a different type of asset. Still plenty of X's in the game, but it's definitely becoming less due to how big it's getting. pTGC will evolve the same way. After this revaluation, after pTGC does a few more X's over PulseChain, etc., it will become bigger. It will become a little more difficult to do these crazy amounts of X's, but it will become more sustainable, which then it evolves into a product that different types of people are looking for. The people who aren't playing with $1,000, $10,000, $20,000, looking for speculative assets, this is now attractive to the people who have hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, who are looking for a secure place to store the value that treats their value with the right respect. Which then becomes a massive onboarding tool for PulseChain alone, because the only way they can be exposed to an asset of this class, if we get this revaluation of PulseChain, is by coming to PulseChain.
I mean, Zen, aren't we so sick of having to say when PulseChain revalues?
Oh, I 100% agree.
I mean,
I thought PulseChain, that's one of the biggest things I got wrong, is I thought PulseChain at this point in time was already going to be 10x higher than SAC price. I did not think we were going to be half a SAC price. So I'm definitely tired of it. The revaluation
but the fact that the market cap is at $190 million now.
The machine's running great. The machine is running so amazing. The key ingredient for the machine is the revaluation of PulseChain. And if we can sit here and say the machine is running great without the main ingredient added to the machine, the revaluation of PulseChain, that's something to be beyond proud of for this community. That means what we have is far better than anyone even expected.
I agree. I agree with that so much. The fact that we're sitting at a damn near $200 million market cap in 24 months without the assets that we've bonded to doing anything yet is astronomical, dude. And it's just being overlooked beyond overlooked. People are either blind or they're biased, or but like I said earlier, it's just creating an opportunity of a potential lifetime. We don't know, but my God, dude, if Richard's chain does something this cycle and it stays there, dude, I think that this thing is it's just an opportunity of a lifetime. And I'm just sick of the whole if Richard's chain revalues thing. It's got to go. If it goes, it's game over, man.
Yeah, so like, real question. I might have this math wrong. I'm not sure. But on a $200 million market cap today, on a 100x on PulseChain, just on that alone would put us at a $10 billion market cap, right? Something like that. Or $20 billion market cap. Did I get that right?
Sorry, Ty, I wasn't listening. I'm playing with when Shiba Inu came out and where ETH was right this second, so we can see how much of a multiplier Shiba worked off of.
Ty, was that 100x on 200 million?
Yeah.
20 billion. It's
20 billion.
Yep.
So yeah, I got it right the second time. All right. So that's not, that's not like unrealistic at all.
At all. Whatsoever. You got meme coins with nothing doing that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so when Shiba Inu roughly came out, ETH was under $200. So ETH is up more than 20x from when Shiba Inu came out. So that means Shiba Inu is working off of a 20x multiplier, which technically you could say, okay, well, what happens where would Shiba Inu be without that 20x multiplier of what it's connected to? Where does that even put Shiba Inu? You know what I mean? Because we haven't yet gotten to see any X multiplier from what we're connected to. The market cap of Shiba is 7.5 billion. So 7.5 billion divided by, we'll do 20x just for the fun of it. That's a 375 million market cap token. We're less than a 2x away from that.
From Shiba?
Wow.
If you take away the X's Shiba got from the Ethereum X multiplier, from Ethereum going up. So a lot of people don't even realize this. When Hex did a 10,000X, Ethereum did more than a 10X. So Hex on Ethereum was working off of a 10x multiplier from ETH going up. All assets that are sustainable work off this X multiplier theory based on the blockchain that they're tied on. What we're speculating on is the blockchain we're built on is going to do way more X's than the opportunity on other blockchains. If you take away the X multiplier that Shiba Inu received from Ethereum, it would only be at a $375 million market cap. We're at a 200 million.
Oh.
It's not because we have more holders.
That's incredible.
The utility is that strong.
Did you do the same for Hex on its peak? That would be, so we're only half of what Shiba did naturally. So Hex only did 1,000x on its own. And I don't know. They claim 10,000x, but.
Well, they did do a 10,000x because they're working off of an X multiplier from Ethereum.
Yeah.
Just like we can claim as much X as we do with the X's that we get from PulseChain. That's the power of being built on an undervalued system. What I'm saying with Shiba Inu is if you take away the X's it's gotten from its genesis, from ETH moving up, that's what I mean. The blockchain moving up with you is the most powerful ingredient. It would only be at a 375 million market cap today. We're at a 200 million.
I want to see what if the price of Ethereum was when SHIB launched.
That's what I just said. It was under $200.
Oh, wow. Holy shit.
So Shiba worked off of a 20x multiplier. Yeah.
22x.
Yeah, so even better. Yeah.
Whereas Sheeb lost all the time between when the chain launched and smart contracts were introduced for the first time and their launch date. They lost a lot of time there, it sounds like. But
they didn't get the easiest exits. They didn't get the exits from Ethereum at $3 to the $200.
Yeah. So I think we have we're like further down, right? Like where we got in, where we built PTGC at compared to PulseChain's launch date.
I believe that's something very unique about PulseChain. There isn't really an event where the blockchain came out, even with BNB, right? And BNB came after Ethereum, where you just had really built out DeFi protocols from like the first couple months from the launch of the tokens. Like you have some assets, like think about this. You could literally have created a token at a $47 ETH, pretty much 100x from where we are here. And if you put $1 million of liquidity in with that token and did nothing, no one bought it ever, nothing, that asset would have $100 million of liquidity at today's prices. You don't even need someone to buy the asset.
This is what people don't get, dude.
We also have people buying the asset, so that's the plus, is right. We have product market fit, but even if no one bought
you
it,
also have the system buying the asset.
you also have the system
and just burning it, dude.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is we just took pretty much one of the biggest assets that attracted so many people to crypto last cycle. Shiba Inu alone onboarded so many people. And that asset without the X multiplier of Ethereum would only be at a $375 million market cap today. Luckily, it did work off of an X multiplier. ETH is up from the launch of Shiba, but PTGC still hasn't gotten to work off of any X multiplier. PLS is literally cheaper than when PTGC launched. There's an opportunity, in my opinion, of a lifetime in front of people here on PulseChain. And this isn't just with the PTGC and UFO asset. There is going to be other successful assets. I think Hex is an opportunity. PulseX is an opportunity. PulseChain alone is an opportunity. But the opportunity that we have, this 10,000 people on PulseChain today, the opportunity that Richard's giving us is once in a lifetime, guys. Like, we'll probably go the rest of our lives and never see anything even close to this.
Yes.
Most likely our kids, everyone after us, their opportunities like this are getting less and less and less.
Wow. You ain't lying.
Jeez, dude. Yeah, I was just looking on PAMP, and $100 million comes into the chain. It's about a 250x the mean of the assets of the core assets on chain. Just $100 million, dude.
And that's because of the liquidity, like the thinning out of liquidity.
Correct.
On the core assets, which we haven't seen. We've seen the moves. The moves happen to get ready for it, but we haven't seen the fireworks yet. And when do they start, guys? When are they going to start? They've got to start soon. Otherwise, I mean, it has to be soon. It has to be very soon.
Like we were talking about, Kuhn, Hex's fireworks didn't start until ETH was far past its previous all-time high.
Right. So let's say
was so successful last cycle with what he did as far as marketing Hex. I bet you the playbook is very, very similar.
Yeah.
ETH needs to get higher than its all-time high by a decent little chunk, and I'm sure we'll magically see. I'm not sure.
Well, Kuhn, let me ask you a question, Kuhn. If you have capital to invest in the thing that you like, right? if you have capital, why would you sell that capital before that capital peaked in value?
Yeah, or increase in value significantly. And you knew that was
why would you sell your Bitcoin or your Ethereum or your Monero or whatever you have? Why would you deploy that capital prior to it becoming overvalued?
No, you wouldn't, Amanda.
You would
100%.
never do that. No
You would never
smart investor, hedge fund, venture capital firm, no one would do that.
Yeah,
It's common sense, man.
Yeah, but it's just around the corner as well. Like ETH is imminent to break out.
You would not take, for example, let's say you have $1 billion worth of Ethereum at 4,400, and you're like, well, let me just take 50 million of that and deploy it now and get it. Well, that 50 million could become 150 million.
Yeah, you'd be crazy to do.
Just 50 million, 100x plus is the chain.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we all know that the probability of ETH at least doing a 2x its all-time high is a very high probability. And that's just for this cycle. And that's conservative.
Without question, dude. Without question.
Yeah.
You don't deploy your assets when they're undervalued, dude.
And the other thing is, like, the timing, it's catching everyone out, because this whole marketing play that RH is going to do, that would go to waste if you didn't see green candles before the before the mailing drop happened, because you want to market something that is lucrative for new investors to get into, i.e. it's increasing in value, it's got green candles, it looks great, the chart looks good, let's jump in. Well, that's just around the corner as well. So you've got that happening in the next couple of weeks to month. Then you've got ETH breaking out to its all-time highs in the next couple weeks to month. Probability is high it's going to happen in around that time frame. Time frame's hard to predict, but we're at the precipice. Like, it's just.
I'm just saying, like, a lot of people, hindsight's always 20/20, but there's just been a lot of, like, unhappy people based on time frame.
Well,
right?
yeah,
like
that's
how
true,
long
Amanda.
it's been. But if you just
That's
think practically, if you're someone that wants to revalue your chain with the amount of capital you have, you be patient, because you know that payoff is 10 times stronger by waiting and deploying it when it's overvalued, not undervalued. You have to wait for the market cycle to do that.
Yeah.
And we see that that's exactly what's happening with the timing of everything going on right now.
Yeah, everything. And it's so right, because if you speak to your future self, you would say in the future that, well, of course that was, of course it happened that way. Like, how could have it happened any other way? He needed his capital to be repriced higher to bring value back into the chain. And that's just the founder's capital, not all the fresh new investors coming in once they've made profits on Bitcoin, Ethereum, other cryptos, to start pouring into PulseChain when everyone's starting to rush across the bridge. So yeah, man. Yeah, make a great point there, man.
Hey guys, I learned something this week that I would like to share with you. It's kind of spooky, but apparently in 2036, about 11 years from now, Bitcoin it's having is going to force the primary incentive for miners to be fee based, and it's going to come off transaction fees. You can look it up. And so when that happens, when the network switches to fee based and it's just ripping fees, what's going to happen to all that money that's stored up in Bitcoin? all that money is basically like staged to be migrated in 2036.
Hmm.
And that's only 11 years from now.
Yeah.
So PulseChain in 11 years, speculative.
I don't get why it would migrate to that, because that's not in the code.
Because if the network switches to being fee based, and it's causing a bunch of because of its halving. It has to do with its halving and miner rewards.
Well, the miner rewards become less and less, but that's okay because the price becomes more and more, and it kind of forces the price upwards. So you're receiving less Bitcoin every halving cycle, but if the price of the Bitcoin becomes worth more and more and more, the incentive remains there. They don't need to change that unless the price of Bitcoin drastically drops.
Okay,
the only reason I'm saying so is I've never heard of this before in my life.
To me, the network only becomes fee-based once there's no more Bitcoin. Once the last Bitcoin's mined, right?
So this says in the future, transaction fees will be the primary incentive for miners instead of block rewards. And
right, but that's not until block rewards dry up.
Well, to produce the next Bitcoin is going to cost fees. So it's, in my opinion, it's going to drive value off of that network. In 2036. So.
And I don't even think fees are that bad a thing if that's where it heads, technically, because at least that's coming from not inflation. That's just a charge on transaction, right?
Well, yeah, it's just the miner rewards for verifying transactions on the network. That's all it is.
Exactly.
It's just to secure the network.
Exactly. So thank you. So to secure the network, it's going to cost more in fees for the end user. So Bitcoin fees are already at like $40 and stuff, just for minimal transactions, but that's going to multiply. It's going to, for the average person who only has a few $100 to get in, it's going to become impractical to even onboard. So onboarding becomes difficult.
Well, it depends on the technology that evolves on top of Bitcoin for transactions and stuff like that, which is already starting to happen. I do understand what you're saying, right? Like some of that capital will look for the next cheaper reality, right? Kind of a thing.
The next store of value, right?
But it's just like when it's just like a normal market cycle when like Bitcoin dominance breaks down and it starts going into the lesser things, right? Except for it'll just, but I do think at that point, like if it keeps going the way that it's going, Bitcoin's just going to be like the digital gold of the world at that point, like kind of a thing, you know? It costs money to move gold around.
Yeah, we'll it's yet to be seen what will happen, if it'll be practical or not in 2036. But yeah, if it's still practical, you're right. It'll probably remain the number one store of value. But if it becomes impractical, I think that a lot of people will be looking for another store of value.
Well, you know, I think
which would be very cool.
You'd have them, if it ever became a situation like that, I don't think that the last Bitcoin block is mined until like 2100 or some shit, like way out.
Yeah, like 2140. Yeah.
Yeah, and so those block rewards are going to keep coming in. And I think that up until that point, if you ever ran into a roadblock like that, the network could actually increase block size. Like they could do things to make it more practical, which was actually in the existing white papers, like to open it up a little bit.
Oh wow, that I did not know that.
Yeah, Richard talked about it
Yeah.
a lot. Like they had that, like increasing the block size. Like they had increasing the block size
In the
talked
protocol.
about a lot. Yeah, and Satoshi talked about it, but they just never did.
Okay, so I think that's probably going to happen, if I had to guess.
So I don't know. Interesting conversation. Little side.
Yeah, side point, but yeah, it was just it was a store value question, really. So thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, personally, I think they should have, enlarged the block size a little bit already, but they just didn't.
Yeah, we may see that happen eventually. But yeah, I think pTGC is still going to be a great store of value, and regardless, I think PulseChain is still going to be around in 11 years. I think it's still going to do great on its own. I think it's still going to have a higher incentive,
Richard's just, dude, he's got to revalue his chain. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just way too cheap.
Shout out to all the real ones. Yeah. Yeah, anybody that's been holding on this long, man, it's a freaking solid. I recognize a lot of people are just in circumstances where they had to sell, and that's fine. That's why it's here. But yeah, you've been holding on this long, like.
Banana, do you have anything on YouTube? I think we're getting pretty close to our time.
There is nothing. There's nothing on YouTube. There's a lot of chat in the chat, which is great, but no direct questions about the Grays or PulseChain. And I agree. I think we're getting up on time. I want to make sure you have time to do your real world work. RWW. And I have real world. I have stuff to do too.
Yeah, I'll just say this. Hindsight's always 20/20.
Yep.
And when you look back on a thing, it's always, that makes so much sense, right? When people are speculating that something was going to happen, 90 which ways from Sunday. But when you actually see what happened, you're like, damn, why didn't I just see that? That was so stupidly easy to know that that's why that happened that way. But I'm going to tell you guys, for anybody who's listening, if you're listening to people who've been around on this chain for a long time, right now, if it was ever going to happen, based on market cycle, based on asset valuations, based on Bitcoin and ETH valuations, based on Richard Hart, based on every metric, every speculation, everything, right now is when you're supposed to be buying PulseChain and things that are good on PulseChain.
Mm-hmm.
That's not financial advice, but that is just a freaking fact from a speculation standpoint. If you're not paying attention to that, if you don't understand that, it's just because you haven't been on the chain, you don't know Richard, you don't know the history, you don't know the market cycle, you don't know whatever you don't know. But I'm just letting you know, right now is the time, based on every freaking category of thought that you could come up with. Not financial advice, but go back and read the last 3 weeks of Richard Hart tweets. The ETH finally got into profits. Up just the other day, it was up almost 200 or 150, $180 million in profit. That's just the beginning of that specific reality happening. That should be a key performance indicator. The ETH going into that much profits that fast, that should be a key performance indicator of where we are on the timeline. Add that to the timeline. That's all I got.
That's cool. You know, Mando, you made me think about something. How many X's can Bitcoin do in the next 10 years? 20. That would put it at like a $80 million, $80 trillion market cap. That's just, I mean, but that's only a 20x. You can only get a 20x out of it, I think, at most in the next 10 years. Whereas with the X multiplier here, we have the chance of just doing stupid X's. I won't even throw out numbers. Right? So I think for that reason alone, I think this play is just the play. Not financial advice.
I've been around the block a little bit, and I have yet to find anything that beats the grays. I challenged. I've been vocally challenging some people, like, bring me something that has as long a track record and has been moving up in USD and against a paired asset for as long as the grays. And I have,
I put that out there like 12 months ago, dude.
Well, I did the same thing. I wasn't even, maybe subconsciously I was copying you, but I didn't even realize that till just now. That's cool, man. So you're backing this up. Somebody thought they had brought me something earlier this week. No, they didn't. No, man. It didn't beat the grays. And it's to me, it's shocking. I just cannot believe that do we actually have a corner on PulseChain? Well, I guess we actually do. Because the charts don't lie.
It's like what Zen said, and we can let it go after this if you want. But I do think that this is the speculation of a lifetime, not just on PulseChain, but on the grace. I think that it's a speculation of a lifetime.
Yeah,
it really is. And then so with Richard's things, and then on top of that, you look at pTGC's ecosystem. And now you have something that's a first of its kind, never done before, first in class, category creating thing built on top of it, connected with massive amounts of, Richard's things. And it's just not getting the exposure because it's not PulseChain's time yet. And then, when it comes to the assets on PulseChain and the community on PulseChain, well, added about 1,000 new users over the last 40-something days. That's not bad. So that's all I got. I just think that it's going to be one of those "we told you so" things, man. And nothing I said is financial advice. Do your own research, do your own market analysis, come in the chat, get your information. But guys, it's very exciting to see, and we're literally, in my opinion, not financial advice, we're right at the door, the tipping point of Richard Hart, one of the most OG of OGs in all of crypto. Revaluing his blockchain, and that's what I personally believe. I think it's going to happen pretty soon.
Cool, guys. I'll shut it down real quick before we go. Does anyone have a question that's in this chat that wants to come up and ask your question before we go? If not, I'll be shutting it down. No one's been raising their hands today. So if you do have a question, we'll have another one of these Monday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Banana also has his YouTube tomorrow at 2 p.m. Is it Pacific Standard Time, Banana, or what time is that tomorrow?
1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard.
Yeah. He goes through the DAP. He goes through look into pTGC. It's a great place to get a lot of visuals and a lot of walkthroughs. You can ask any question in the comments. You don't need to hop up anywhere, and he runs through like everything. So if you want to learn, go there. He's a great teacher.
Thank you, Zane. I appreciate that. Have a good day, man.
All right. See you guys.
See you guys.
Yo, that was good. I got to go listen to it. I got to download it from my own channel and listen to it. It's kind of funny. Hey, man, did you hear that? I mean, he's at work, been tied up with us for 3 hours. And he's like, is there anybody that has a question? And, you know, nobody has a question, but you talk about patience and dedication and hard working. Best founder in crypto. Okay, maybe second to Richard Hart, but okay, we got the best founder and the other best founder. We got two. If you're in the grays on PulseChain, you got the best of the best. You're welcome, Polygon. Yeah, I echo that. It's just amazing. I love being in here, guys. So jump on my stream tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. And we'll run through the grays. I mean, if you guys want to, especially if you have onboards that need to get acclimated, it's a great place for them to jump in and learn. It's a little long, sure, but yeah, Zen is remarkable. He's my champion. I genuinely love Zen. Like man to man, like I love him. Firefighting 82. Good to see you, man. All right, guys, have a great Saturday. We'll see you around the block. We'll see you on Monday. We'll be on Spaces Monday. All right, see you guys.